the I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.
Paxton Bailey, welcome, man.
Thanks for having me, man. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, you were just talking about gifts, and it was going to bring me one of my first questions to you about. I didn't realize you were such a gift giver, and I was listening to the Kane episode that you have on your podcast where we're swapping gifts, but yeah. Always a gift giver?
No, it's kind of been more so a newer thing, and I'm still not a great gift giver. I still give the cheap stuff, but I try and be thoughtful because I overthink about everything. And
I can't remember. What did you give him, though?
He's a big MF Doom fan, so
right.
I bought him like these. They come in like canvas material. It's kind of nice.
It looks like those receipts, right?
Yeah, they look like receipts, and it's just a discography of all the things from that album. And then it was six pieces. 4 of them or 5 of them were actual albums, and then just 2 cool pictures and some picture frames.
Yeah,
and
I like giving gifts. Hate receiving gifts.
Hate it.
Hate receiving gifts.
Yeah, so that's one of my things too. We were just talking about, like, if you get me something grandiose, I'll freak out because I'll be so nervous that I mess it up. But if you were to get me like 2 cookies, I would be so happy. Like, I'd get down on a knee and marry you despite of what you are.
My wife's getting really angry with me because my 40th birthday is coming up. So she wants to, she's trying to be a good wife and have like, we need some big celebration. But I've never been that way with my birthdays.
Right.
And, she was like, I want to go to like Sedona and do a helicopter ride and all these things. And I'm sitting here, I'm like bumming around. I'm like, I don't really have an interest to go to Sedona. It's fine, but I don't really care.
Right.
And I was like, I also don't want to get in a helicopter with you and me in there while we now have a 4-year-old son. Because if that, you know what I'm saying? Like, now if things go down, we have an orphan. And it's like, we have to think about that now. And so she's all pissed off. She's like, well, you better tell me something to do. We're not just going to have like a dinner or something.
Right. And
I don't know.
I'm just now starting to date a person that's really good to me.
Yeah.
And that's very new because I'm just coming from toxic. Like, I was used to girls holding knives up to
you're
my throat.
early 20s. So
yeah, exactly.
You
got to get those
out there, man.
Like, with what I'm coming from dating, if she were to just think of an idea for something like going to Sedona, the idea enough would be enough. Like,
well, that's what I was trying to tell her. I was like, I love that you're thinking about doing that, but I just don't want to do anything.
Right. Tell me that you thought about going to Sedona and then throw, like a pizza on my lap.
Maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe you go like, here's what I planned for us to do. We're not going to do it, but here's everything I thought. If we did do it, we could do it. And I'd go, wow, you're incredible.
I feel tired already,
but please,
babe.
let's just save the money. Now that I know we could have done all those things, what a great birthday.
Right.
And then I was thinking about like 40. I was talking to Liz Mooney about it, like 40. Your prime age for a midlife crisis.
Right.
But I don't have any money to go like, first of all, I don't want to divorce my wife. I'm not looking for something younger. I'm not looking for that kind of trouble.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm just looking for peace.
I don't have money for the Porsche I want. And
right.
It's like, how do you have a midlife crisis on a budget? Like, what do you get when you don't, like, you can't ball out of control? You're pretty happy with your family life.
You become the guy that goes to Cancun twice a year.
Yeah, right.
And you know what? As soon as I say that as a negative thing, I'd love to be that guy.
That sounds great. But I was thinking, like, man, what am I going to do to, like, what's a good midlife crisis when you're not really freaking out,
Right.
But anyway.
Honestly, I would just, like, if you're a big sports fan, you're just like, hey, can we go to, like, 3 games this year without you fighting me on it?
See, not a big sports fan either, though.
No, fair enough.
I mean.
But you are an athlete's guy. You're in marathons and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I played sports growing up. Like,
what'd you play?
In high school, I played basketball. I would have played soccer in high school, but it was such a small town, they didn't have a soccer team.
Right.
So, like, when I turned, like, 15 or 16, around that age, all the guys that I played soccer with in this other league, they just went to their high school's teams. And so I was like, well, I guess we're focusing on basketball now.
Yeah.
But pretty good. Like, at my little school, in my little district, got Defensive Player of the Year.
Wow.
And we won district. We were
nice
district
little
champs.
Dennis Rodman, except for you were a little more sane.
Yeah, right. And so, I mean, it was pretty good. And then, like, in my 20s after, graduating high school, I got into, like, running and cycling more. Mm-hmm. And it's like I was living in an apartment where you had these incredible gyms.
Right.
So you could go down at midnight. I was waiting tables so you could get off, 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning and go work out for 2 hours.
Like 3 psychopaths are there.
Yeah.
And then you see them every night.
Nobody says a word. You just look at each other, little nod.
And then one of those guys doesn't show up for a couple weeks, and then you figure out he's in jail.
Yeah. Right.
We were talking about downstairs. I used to be like heavy addicted, like not addicted. I used to have really bad insomnia.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I used to do. Like after I quit sports in high school, I would go to the gym at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And it was fun to work out that late and not have anyone in my way. It was more fun to watch the freaks.
Yeah.
And I was one of those freaks. That was perfectly well and good.
I agree. Like, we're weird people if you go that late. But also, it's like the few times I'll go to, like right now, the gym we use, the few times I'll get there at like 5 or 6 in the evening where it's earlier, It's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. It's
packed.
A bunch of high school kids, and they come in groups of 8.
Yeah.
And they just keep flexing. I'm like, if you want to see something, I'm going to pick you up and move you. Like, if you want to see something big.
And now, I don't know how you are, but like nowadays, okay, so since it's cold right now, right? It's about to be February, and we've already had like freezing temperatures. It's like, I'm doing a lot of my runs on the treadmill at the gym.
Mm-hmm. So does that hurt a lot more?
It doesn't hurt, but I feel like it's probably easier than running on the road. So I think when I actually go to do the marathon, I'm probably going to be at a disadvantage because I didn't train like running on.
Gotcha.
Even though it's still running, that treadmill's moving.
Right.
It's helping you just a little.
Just a little bit.
You know?
And I mean, you're going to have the hills and lowers and stuff like that.
I'm mostly going flat all the time here, but
Right.
I'm not going to, I don't want to go out in freezing weather and run right now.
Not worth it.
I have no desire. So, but when you're doing like 8 miles on a treadmill and you're at my pace, you know, you're there for over an hour on the treadmill. And so you get bored. You just start looking around, you know, and now I have to think about like I have to think about where my gaze is to make sure I'm not being a creep staring at somebody working out.
Oh, the
You know what I'm
1,000-yard
saying?
stare is such a problem. The amount of times I'm pretty sure I've hurt my neck because I stare straight at the floor while I'm doing anything. Like, unless you're the guy that's working off the weight rack, I'm staring at my feet.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you how dirty my shoes are because I can see each individual particle of like needing to throw this in the washer.
Especially lifting weights, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you throw up some dumbbells or something, you put them down, you sit for a minute. And it's like you can't help but just start looking around. And then before you know it, it's like you're staring at somebody's crotch or something.
Like,
and you're like, this is
you bent over there. That's not my fault. I checked to make sure.
I try to sit in these zones now where I look at the clock, you know, so because I'm waiting like a minute between my reps or something,
Right.
you know. And I was just like, okay, just look at the clock and just wait for it to go. Don't look at anything else. But then I'm like, well, that probably looks equally crazy.
Right.
Like he stops and he just stares right at the clock. He never moves, you know, but
That guy's got some troubled home life. You're like, no, I'm just trying to not get in trouble these days.
You know where it comes from, though? Have you ever heard of a guy on Instagram named Joey Swole?
Yeah. He's a good dude.
It's his videos, though. It's like all the dudes that get confronted by women at gyms. Like, were you staring at me? Were you looking at me? And it's like, no. It's like, I don't know what to tell you.
No, I'm thinking about how much I hate my body right now.
If anything, I'm looking at you going, God, I need to get in better shape.
If anything, I'm looking at you like, you lucky son of a bitch.
Speaking of which, though, I have a hard time believing, because you're in good shape now, and I've heard you talk multiple times, like when me and Lawrence were on there, and then on your other episodes, talked about how your words, you were just a big old fatty.
Yeah, it's just a big old tub of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that all through high school?
Yeah, with some weird stints. Like, I was, other than maybe like being 12, I was always the biggest kid.
Okay,
well,
but
not
you're,
the biggest.
You're taller.
Like
What
the
are you, like
third.
6'1", 6'2"?
6'2" now.
6'2"? What is your weight now? What do you
I'm
think?
205 because I've been eating a lot of sweets recently.
Okay, so what was big to you then? What was the number?
Before I left for college, I actively stopped getting on the scale after I saw 275.
275.
So,
do you think you touched 300 ever?
I don't think that far, but I definitely
close.
looked over the edge at it.
Yeah.
And you know, like, yeah, people always say, but like, oh, you probably wore it well. I was like, yeah, but I was a fucking, you know, I'm sorry.
You can cuss as much as you want, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, but you don't feel well.
Yeah, and here was my thing is I was never the fattest kid in my friend group. I know I just said the fattest, but that was wrong. I was always like the third fattest.
Yeah.
So you can't make fun of the fattest ones because they're in the friend group and you have morals, apparently my friends did, those assholes.
So
but
because
they make
you
fun
weren't
of
as
me.
fat as them, you were the easier target?
I was the easier target for that and because I was quiet and shy.
Yeah.
So, like, that wasn't my thing, was going after my friends. I'm like, no, I pick you. Like, I come from home. Everyone's yelling at home. I come here to have fun. And then you're like, what's up, tits? I was like, motherfucker. I didn't want to do this today.
For us, it's like, you know, my generation, like Fight Club was, I know it's a great movie still, but it was huge, right? It was just groundbreaking. And so everybody was just calling each other bitch tits.
Yeah.
Because, you know, what's it, Bob has bitch tits? Or what was his name? Meatloaf's character, who did the steroids and got gynomastia. Is it gynomastia?
I think so.
Where
that
the
sounds
steroids
familiar.
make you grow boobs as a man.
Right.
Yeah. And they were like, this is, I think his name is Bob. They were like, yeah, this is Bob. Bob has bitch tits.
Yeah. Someone must have seen the John Mulaney special at some point and took his wording, but no one else knew that but me. But someone said I had feminine hips at one point. And I was like, dude, I've got to change schools. This sucks.
Yeah.
Everyone heard that. Everyone heard that, and it's made its way around.
Well, from what I heard when you were talking on one of your episodes, is the peanut butter sandwich thing that your coach told you, is that true? Were you actually eating that many?
Yeah, and looking back on it now,
like for my listeners, you had a coach who said, eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the hour, every hour, even when you're sleeping, wake up and eat a sandwich.
Yeah, I think, okay, looking back now, he was just saying that extra part
Yeah.
to like
Drive it home.
Drive it home. Just so, it's a good coach.
But still, even if you did that
cheer
for
up.
10 hours,
Right.
while you're awake, 10 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Were you doing that?
I was lying to him, but
Yeah.
I was having like a piece of bread and some peanut butter like at least 8 times a day.
Damn.
I would do the little broke ass like foldovers.
Yeah.
Those are perfect. I'm like, I'm getting it in, coach.
Wow.
And it was because none of them knew. Like, I feel bad saying this, but who in the hell was going to be teaching fat kids how to stay in shape other than the guy that had a triple bypass? Like,
right.
He got so fat at one point that during football practice, he had to bring out a rolly chair and he couldn't stand up.
Oh, my God.
He was sitting in a rolly chair on the turf field, rolling around, yelling at us and calling us fat. You're like, hey, man, you can't stand up.
Yeah, it's like, it's like I have blood pressure issues, and it's like as an adult at least, I've had issues with fluctuating weight, and it's like, I was telling you on the way up here, I was like, you just hit a point where your metabolism crashes, but you're in denial.
Right.
You're like, I can still go hit the gym this week, and I'll drop that back off.
Yeah.
And you can't, right? And what I hated is when I'd go to like a primary care doctor, like my main doctor, and they're like, they look like me, they're a little overweight, and they're not really doing much, and they're like, that's just what happens. And it's like, you're the doctor.
Yeah.
You
have spaghetti sauce in your tie, asshole.
you legally can tell me, lose some weight, dude. Drop some weight, man. You're gonna have problems.
Right.
And
Or
so-
it's the old Segura bit. You're like, you're just cosmetically fat. You're like, you're just calling me fat to call me fat? You could have just said I was fine.
Yeah, man. And it's like, I'm all about acceptance of you. Like, if you just have weight issues, I'm not gonna tease you.
Oh,
but
not
if you're
at all.
but if you're like,
Unless you're my friend.
If you're like, I don't know why I'm fat, and it's like, do you exercise? No. You getting sleep? No. You watching your food? No, not at all. It's like, now we might make fun of you a little bit.
Yeah, there's a
Like,
checklist. There's a reason why.
Yeah.
This isn't just random. There's an A to a B to a C.
Yeah, and but yeah, like once I got a doctor where she looked fit, and she was like, so your blood pressure pretty high, yeah?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, have you considered it might be because of your weight? And I was like, yes, I
For
just
a long
need to
time
hear
now.
it from you also.
And the thing is, she's the doctor. You don't have to end up looking like her. You just got to strive to look closer to her.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty happy though. I was on 2 different types of blood pressure medication. I'm down. I've gotten rid of one completely,
Nice.
and then the second one I'm down to like the half dose.
Oh, very good.
And so I'm hoping to keep the weight. So right now I fluctuate between like 215 and 220. And so I'm probably like 5'10", 5'11", depending on the day, And like
Depending on if it's in the football program or not.
I don't know. I haven't had a real official measurement in a while, so
Right.
I don't know. But it's like conservatively, let's say 5'10". It's like, did you ever like? Do you think the BMI chart is credible?
No, I think it's all a bunch of horse shit because
Yeah.
I've gone to a doctor's office, and even after I had started losing weight, I think I was around 240 at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still a brick shit house, but like I had lost some weight.
Mm-hmm.
It was just mostly in my stomach. I looked like I'd been drinking for 40 years. Like that's
Mm.
where I was. And I go to the doctor's office, and he's walking in, looking at my chart, basically talking shit about me. And he looks up and goes, "Oh,
Yeah,
that's
like
not
you're-
that bad."
See, but then I get confused, right? Because like when the Mike Tyson fight came on, one of the prelim fights with the 2 guys who were like, it was I can't remember their names. It was like 2 Hispanic guys. They were like the really great fight.
Yes, and it was
Yeah.
the greatest fight I'd ever seen.
Okay, so that guy, the one who looked, I mean, they both looked incredible, but one of them was just kind of like extra ripped.
Yeah.
And I think he was like 6'6'1".
Right.
He
and
was 160 pounds.
it doesn't make any sense.
And so that's when I think about BMI, and I'm like, so if I got down, because I told my wife, I was like, I wonder if I can get down to like 175, I don't know. And so that's my goal is like,
Technically?
first we're going to get to
Yeah.
200. Well, without feeling sickly, you know what I'm saying? Like
That's
with
the thing.
with reasonable amounts of muscle and feeling like I have energy, and she's like, "No, you'd be way too skinny." And it's like, "Yeah, but this guy has got, 2 inches of height on me."
Yeah.
And it's 10 pounds less than my goal weight, and he doesn't look sick at all. Like,
True,
he
but
looks-
he's also 15 years younger than you.
yeah, I mean, that's why I added the 10 pounds.
There you go. But no,
But I go back and forth on BMI because it's like, because honestly, like if you're a big muscled up power lifter, that still is a lot of weight for your heart to pump blood around.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where it's like, well, maybe BMI is, I don't know. And then you hear like, I looked it up one time, the way it was created, I can't remember anymore, but it was created by somebody like a very long time ago.
Yes.
And it's like, well,
Yeah, I was
it's probably
still
time for an update.
I got down to 210 at one point. That was another plateau that I couldn't get past. And then I started researching it. I was like, if 210's the best, how is that? Like, if that's the best I can do, what am I looking at? And I was still technically morbidly obese.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because me, I know I have So at 215, like when I felt the best previously was like 190. Felt really good.
Right.
And even then, though, it's like when you go look at the numbers, they're like overweight.
Yeah.
I'm like, and so like right now, definitely right now I'm in obese or something above that. I'm not sure where it crosses anymore. And it's just like, damn. And you wonder like, am I not accepting that I'm obese because I'm American and we just see so many fat people all the time that we're all like, you're not fat, you look great.
Right.
And then when you see really, like when you see people like, I don't know, when you see like Japanese people or like India, it's like, like people think like, oh, they look skinny. And it's like, I think that might be our normal weight. I think we're all just, I don't know.
I think it's a nice medium between the two.
Yeah.
Because I think there are so many people in those countries and it's not as economically striving as ours. They don't have access to all that, and that's why they're that skinny. Like, it's not, they want to look like us.
There's this famine.
Yeah. They probably are like, look at that fat guy. I mean, being fat used to mean you were of abundance.
Yeah, that was the hot women back in the day, right?
Exactly. Everyone wanted this Bacchus dude that was drinking wine.
We wanted you really fat, because that meant you had money, and then really pale because that meant you didn't have to work in the sun. Right?
We wanted you fat and pale and gonna die soon so I could take your money elsewhere. The MRS degree has always made sense. It's just dependent on the time.
So when was the realization that like, I've gotten fat, I'm gonna get it under control now?
Oh, get it under control is a different thing. But I always had the realization, you're like, well,
what was the moment though where you were like, okay, I'm doing something about it?
College. I moved to college, and in high school, middle school, elementary school, I was always the fat, shy, quiet dork. Mm-hmm. And, I was going to a college, and I'm like, I know one person going to this college. Have you ever seen the movie The New Guy with DJ Qualls?
Yeah.
I did that.
Oh, okay.
I did that. I became, again, something I'm not, but it helped. Mm-hmm. I just became, first I became an alcoholic.
That old story.
Yeah.
I love how you're like, well, before I got better, I really went to new rock bottom.
So much worse.
I was like, what would be good with the overeating? Lots of drinking.
Lots of drinking, because then you'll stop eating because you'll drink for dinner. That's going to be great. You're going to be so hydrated.
Oh my gosh. Man, you've had a lot of realization for 24.
Yeah, I've been 45 at heart for a very long time. My mom has always said, my mom, I don't know why she says it like this, but she says, I popped out a 35-year-old, and it's been real weird.
Do you have siblings? Older siblings?
I've
siblings?
got one younger sister. She's 7 years younger than I am. So, and that was its own thing.
So you were kind of already like the old man to her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was another thing too, is because like I still do believe that women age or mature faster than men, without a doubt. However, we were still 7 years apart, so she was still like 2 years younger than me.
Oh, I see.
And she's got such bad ADHD and a motor mouth that she got from my mom. She never stops talking. Peyton, if you watch this, I love you dearly, but you got to stop.
Peyton and Paxton.
Yeah, that was that was another thing.
Yeah,
like really one letter difference in the whole alphabet. That's another thing too, is because she made our names so similar. Mm-hmm. She mixes up our names all the time to where she started calling us boy and girl. I was like, you picked mine first.
Yeah.
My name.
Boy and girl, man. That's I had an older brother, younger sister.
Okay.
The older brother was 3 years older, younger sister was 5 years younger. But that 5 years alone felt like miles. Because you're out of high school by the time they start high school. Those little differences just felt like such a big difference. And then of course, once you get into your 20s, 30s, now it's like, it's not too far off anymore.
No, yeah. It's
weird how it works like that.
And the same thing is like just dating in that realm of like age ranges. Like if a senior dated a freshman from guy to girl or girl to guy, it would have been weird. Mm-hmm. But my parents are 6 years apart, and like after a certain point, it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
It might have been weird in the 80s when they met at the bar they worked at.
Yeah.
But also, she was 19, he was 26, he was a bartender, she was a hostess. Isn't that exactly what everyone does?
Yeah, oh man, that's like, I waited tables, I bartended.
You end up dating one, then you learn not to, except for they didn't because they got married.
Yeah, but it's definitely like, you guys in your comedy world, it's the same thing. It's like the amount of open mics and like after hour hangs and stuff, where it's like, hey, stop hooking up with everybody, okay?
Yeah. Hey, you're just like, she knows a lot of things now.
Oh, man.
You can only talk about how small your dick is so many times until someone else starts talking about it.
Yeah,
you got to take that from them.
You always want the audience to wonder if you're joking about it. You don't want confirmation one way,
Someone's sitting in the back, no, it is. You're like, oh, man.
Yeah. What was I? I was about to ask you something. I was blanking on it. But anyway, we were talking about age gaps. Oh, I really feel for you and like all dudes in your age bracket now dating. Because I start having flashbacks to what it was like dating in early 20s.
Yeah.
And I'm just it's like, if you knew what you know now, then kind of thing.
Right.
But also, like, everybody, guys and girls across the board, it's like you're all psychos at that age.
Oh.
Because you're just
a lunatic.
Well, and it's like that part of your life where everyone's just trying to figure out everything.
Right.
And it's really hard. And now you're also trying to throw a romantic relationship in with the chaos.
Yeah.
And it's like you probably don't have like a ton of disposable income for like great dates and these things. You're already trying to get by in life. And now you got to figure out how to impress someone.
It all feels like the end of Fight Club.
Yeah.
Once he has the realization that Tyler Durden's not real and Beatrix Lestrange, whatever her name in that movie was. Once you like at the end, that's every young relationship. You're like, because we have no money and we kind of hate everyone that's better than us. So let's either watch the world burn or somehow figure out how this is going to get better.
When I came, like my wife and I were locked in our relationship before apps. Like my generation, online dating was like a stigma.
Right.
And everybody.
Yeah.
And so dating, I think, was a lot easier then. Like I think expectations get raised to these kind of crazy levels right now for y'all because of social media saying like, look how awesome everything is everywhere all the time. And you guys are just like, well, I'm a piece of shit. I can't offer this or that, and it's all fake anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
She's sitting on top of that other guy that's 40 years old that's inside that restaurant's Lambo.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the guy that she's dating.
Dude, when I was younger, it's like the amount of women that were totally cool with like, I don't know, I was thinking maybe we go see like a movie, get a drink, maybe some dinner or something. They're like, absolutely, that sounds like a great time.
You made a plan?
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. It's just what, or like, hey, I think there's like a concert. Let's just go check it out. And, concerts weren't, $50 a ticket.
Right.
You go to like a $10 show.
Oh, I'm still trashy to where concerts are at a $50 ticket. Like, I'm always in the lawn. I'm going to rent a chair because I'm an old man.
Yeah.
But I need to sit all the way in the back where no one's going to be and then just be out there. Like, even... I went to go see Wu-Tang, Nas, and Busta Rhymes. I still sat down the whole time and just like had a great time.
How was that?
It was my favorite concert I've ever been to.
Out of those you just mentioned, who do you think was like the best performer that night?
That's tough because Wu-Tang and Nas came in and did exactly what you thought they were going to do, which was kill. But then okay, so the way they set up this concert, it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. Wu-Tang, the headliner, came out and did 4 songs first. And then Nas came out and did 4 songs. And then Busta Rhymes had the whole middle. And then it was Nas again and then Wu-Tang.
Whoa.
And Method Man wasn't in the first part, but he was on the second part.
That's pretty wild.
It was the greatest concert I've ever seen. And Busta Rhymes did the best. Because I did not expect anything from Busta Rhymes. And he came out knowing exactly who he was, which was, we love you for the one part you have in every song that's awesome, but then don't play any more of that song.
Yeah.
Like, Pass the Crevassier is a terrible song, but that one beginning part is incredible.
But he's a sleeper in the sense that, because he kind of went like a little commercial, right?
Yeah.
So you think like, you don't think guys like him are like Ice Cube when he's doing like family movies and stuff. You don't think they still have it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when you see them do it, you're like, damn, no, he's still there.
They still have the talent that they used to have.
Yeah.
But it's always so funny to me when you get like these Ice Cubes, Ice T's. Well, shit, even Ice Cube's son at this point. They're all like making music too, and they're still talking about all the struggles they go through. And I'm like, dude, you live...
You're not going through struggles anymore.
Right. I mean, your house might have just burned down because it was in L.A., but like...
you got enough. You're fine.
You've got a second one somewhere.
Yeah. I mean...
like
at some point, isn't it like, hey, man, just do the hits.
Right. One of my...
because I can appreciate like that was a different time like than where you're at now. I mean, because Eminem doesn't really do that.
I was just about to say, he was my favorite artist for the longest time, and then he kept making new stuff. I'm like, oh, you pulled an Albert Pujols and you didn't retire early enough. No.
He really is. I mean, it's wild. Like when you see so many black rappers talk about how he's the best rapper,
Yeah.
And you're just like that he got that credibility from, I think it was 50 Cent who was like, rap is black music.
Right.
It's black culture, but Eminem is the best rapper.
I mean, if you go look at Elvis is hated because he was not good enough.
Yeah.
Eminem did almost the very similar thing, so I can see why people don't like him because he stole culture, but then he also made it his thing.
Yeah.
Like, well, he didn't make it his thing, but he made it his own way.
Well, nobody was, again, that was my generation. Like when that first album came out, I'm in high school and you're just like, this is different than anything I've ever heard.
Yeah, there's nothing like this. Who the hell is talking about living in a trailer with his mom, talking about being off his benzos and hating his wife?
That first hit, the hi, my name is what? That was like the weirdest song at the time.
Yeah.
And then you find out Dre's behind it.
Right.
And you're like, wow, he's got a little credibility, and it's just so crazy. And that was also the same time of like Jackass being wild.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like this wild dude just breaking these rules, and
it was it made me want to revolt, and I had nothing to revolt.
Oh my God, man. Between him and like punk rock music and, like Limp Bizkit, and so it's like everything was just like, I had a pretty decent upbringing. Like we were broke, we didn't have money, but we didn't have hard times.
Yeah, it was check to check, but we were still in a really nice neighborhood.
But
so
all the music of my generation is like, I got to get out of this. Like,
and then you get out, you're like,
I'm so oppressed.
I want to go back. Shit, I was angsty because I was young.
Yeah, and it's like you meet somebody with like real hard times. It's like I'll be talking to someone, like me about like growing up where it's like, yeah, we were poor, this kind of stuff like that. And then it's like, now I've kind of befriended Lawrence Rosales after working with him, and you hear about, he's like, yeah, I know what you mean, man. Like my mom, she had like 25 to life.
Yep.
And it's like, oh
God.
No, we're different. Never
I'm
mind.
a wuss. Holy shit.
I'm kind of a puss. I don't want to tell you any more stories.
Yeah. I know it's the same thing with, I don't know if you've met him yet, Nikki Butler.
No.
I love Nikki so much, and it's so funny that I've loved him so much because the very first time I met him, I was having a terrible day, and I was the biggest asshole to him. And I've since like apologized. I don't know if I could apologize enough because I still feel terrible. But ever since then, he and I have gotten closer, at least from my perspective, I think. And he is one of those dudes. Like, I wouldn't share any of his stories. Those are for him. But we drove together to Rose City and Tyler to go do a show. And everyone talks about how, like, being with Nikki is eventually, like, after 30 minutes, you get tired. I was in for the whole ride.
Oh, is he just a chatterbox or what?
Not even necessarily a chatterbox, because you don't want him to stop. It's just that every time he opens his mouth, it's a new bomb dropped. And you're like, this guy is a gold mine. You're like, holy shit.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so not necessarily anything about his home life, but this tells you Nikki inside and out. On the podcast, he came on with Nathan Rivas. Go check out that episode. And I just asked him just a random question because I was a little high. And I said, what is the biggest animal you think you could take on? And he genuinely, I thought he was messing with me. And then I kept asking him about it, and I realized he's genuinely challenging all rhinos. He genuinely thinks he can take on a rhino. And like after a certain point, I'm like, you have got to be fucking with me.
Well, what's the plan there? You can't go head to head with that.
He lays out a 16-step plan.
On the episode?
Like some of it on the episode, and then I was like, you've got to talk to me now that we're on the couch and off air. He's like, I've got it. Like, I've thought about this. And he shows you that he shows you the work.
You know what I love about that is, like, if there were ever a moment where a rhino's around him, he's like, it's okay.
I got you.
I've planned for this, right? And then the moment everything starts happening, the rhino just kills him. And it's like, yeah, the plan means nothing.
100%. He's going to get stabbed right through the chest.
Yeah, this is good on paper. They're super fast. They have a sharp thing right on the front of their head. You're done. You're done.
They're built like a tank, but, delusion is fun. I love delusion.
I have an acquaintance that's a surgeon, and when they were hiring people for like their office or people that had to work in their medical thing, or if he was, working with like a resident who's going to become a surgeon, he said that was one of his standard interview questions is, what do you think the largest animal is that you can kill with your bare hands?
Really? That's an awesome doctor.
And he was just, but for him, it was just, a lot of stuff mixed in that question. I guess like, one, are you delusional?
Yeah.
Two, do you have a sense of humor? Can you think about something weird and different in this stressful situation?
Yeah.
But, I still think about it. It's like, I think, well, what do you think? I'll let you go first. What do you think? Bare hands, you had to kill an animal. I'm not saying you come out unharmed.
No,
you're just not dying.
I'm going to get touched up. I know. I boxed for a little bit, and I'm a big dude, and I have a chin from hell. That's all I know I can do.
All right. So what animal do you think you're going for? If you need to think about it, I think mine would be, I think I could really take care of a coyote. That's about it.
That's a really good guess. That's a night.
Because coyotes instinctually run. So it's like, all right, you got a little fear of me.
Right.
So I might.
They know.
They know I'm bigger. And, I've wrestled with my dog enough, my domesticated dog, that I think, okay, if I could pin it. If I could pin it, I could end it. But it's just staying away from that constant biting. That's the only part.
They got you there. I don't know. If you were to give me, if you were to line me up against an orangutan 10 times,
What?
I'd win 6.
An orangutan?
A smaller one, but
I think you're underestimating how strong they are.
I am for sure.
They're so strong.
But they're slow. If I can get behind it,
I've never seen. Now listen, I'm not going to fight with you on that because I've never seen one move fast. But I don't know if that's just because. Like when they're filming them, they're not moving quickly. I don't know if they can move
They could
quick.
just be the chillest thing, and it's like when you see a hippo go 40 in the water, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
That changes a lot of things in
Or what
life.
if it's like, what if it's like a thriller thing where it's like the orangutan moves slow, but it's kind of like Jason. It just somehow always catches up to you anyway. It just slowly is gripping you, and you're like, I thought I was faster than, like if one finger gets on you, it's like a rock climber, they can just.
Their hands, they can pull down a building.
Orangutan.
I-
When I leave here, I'm going to do some research on orangutans, and I'll message you because that's pretty. They're so human. I would think they're going to beat me every time.
I feel like that would be a hilarious game to play for you to put on your podcast one time as like an extracurricular. We get as many comics we get as many comics as we can, and we go to a zoo and we give them a checklist of the map, and they just check every time they think they can. Because like now that I'm thinking about it, if we're out of the water, I could definitely take a seal.
A seal?
They don't have appendages other than like a fin.
Yeah, I mean, and like. Are their teeth sharp? I don't really know how that works with them. They don't have big mouths. You can stay away from the mouth, is my point.
You can stay away from the mouth, and as far as I know, at least maybe it's just like an elephant seal. I love animals, so I loved all the weird shit animals.
You've seen all those great videos of people chasing one down to cut like fishing line off of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they caught him and they pinned it. So
They caught him, they pinned it, and it
I'm
just
very
looks kind
confident
of dumb.
You could club a seal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You could do that.
That's where that comes from.
Exactly.
Like someone did it at some point.
Yeah, it's
Or
weird
just
to
like a
think about.
people's elbow, just from like the top ropes.
I think you have to think about that as a guy. I was trying to explain that to my wife. It's like, even though I live in Dallas and I have like a mortgage and I'm very, like I'm not an outdoorsy guy. And,
Right. We keep building where the mountain lions are. They're going to come into town.
But I was telling her, I was like, but you do just think about like, yeah, but if society collapsed, like how long could I defend y'all?
Oh, yeah.
And you start thinking about like if a wolf came into camp, it's like, damn.
I'm done.
I hope y'all can run for it. I'll let him eat me while you guys go. But
I just got to be faster than that guy.
It's a very male survival thing of like, what could I kill or prevent from killing me?
Oh, 100%.
But then you start getting sad because you're like, not a lot.
Not a whole lot, unless I'm a little delusional. But like, I feel like every man should do that. I feel like every man in situations where they're in public should be looking at every possible exit for like a shooter situation.
Always.
I made sure I was always close enough to like a lamp or something to like if I had to defend something in class.
My wife, when we go to a restaurant, always wants to see the whole restaurant. But that's just for her because like she doesn't want to get a migraine. She just like she wants to just see things, I guess, and know like. Whereas I'm like, no, but I need that seat because you're not actually observant of what's going on around.
Yeah, you're going to come to my side and ask me to do something about it.
Exactly.
If that guy walks in.
Yeah.
I need to see the restaurant.
Well, it's like when you're by yourself, especially eating, it's like every time the door opens, you kind of look over there. Okay, no, I got that person. Okay, they could be a problem.
I probably, if people see me in the situation, I do that way too much. I'm a people observer. I study. I find people fascinating because I was probably alone a lot. So like just there I think it's because I'm making sure I'm not weird. For as much as I wasn't homeschooled, I'm kind of like a homeschooled kid. But like I just watch people all the time, and I think after like a session of watching people, you're like, oh, they think I'm gonna take their skin. Like that's bad. Like I've just been staring at this person for 40 minutes, and he's just eating a hamburger.
Yeah, it's people are strange. This podcast and then just meeting comics and hanging out with comics more has really reset my tolerance for normal conversation.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, God, I feel
lovely weather we're having today. I'm like, I'm going to kill us both.
Yeah, and it's like, and now I feel like, so I work in the medical field now where I deal with a lot of people. But before that, it's like I bartended where I dealt with a lot of people. I waited tables. I worked retail. And it's like, for a good, like we're talking maybe, 15-year span of my life at least, maybe more. It's like I feel like I'm hearing the same stories every day.
Yeah.
For like 15, the same complaints, the same, like, hey, how was your weekend? Oh, it was good. Too short.
Yeah. All those dad jokes.
And like the people when you're like middle of the workday, hey, how's it going? 3 days till Friday. It's like, yeah.
Or like
cool.
The one that always made me like. It shouldn't have, and that's why I need to go to therapy. The one that made me mad, though, was, if I were any better, there'd be two of me. You're like, you need to stop it right now. Something really bad happened at home and you're projecting.
What mine that gets me is there's always like a sassy religious woman at every career I've ever worked at where you're like, how's the day going? And you're just being like a normal person, like, oh, hey, hey, Shelly, how's the day going? What's up? And they're like, too blessed to be stressed. And you're
Yikes.
like, yeah, but no, really, like, everything good,
Oh, the bank's coming for my home. That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I'll help.
Yeah,
I'll help you out. I'll give you $20. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then like, it's like you have a day job, right?
Yeah. I sell foundation repair. So I'm,
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you working from home or are you working in an office?
I work a lot in my house with my office, but I also drive to a lot of people's houses.
So you're interacting?
Yeah, I have a very small amount of time to interact with people, and then they
good.
also leave me alone, which is the best. So yeah, I have a really free job right now. It's pretty nice. Like,
well, it's like the need of people to I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, okay, they always want to keep it surface level, which I appreciate.
yeah.
But also, it's fine to like when you hop in an elevator, it's fine for us to just not say a word,
Oh yeah.
right?
I love being silent.
Just a quick, how's it going?
Yeah.
It's good. And we're just going to be silent, Get out of the elevator, have a good one.
Yeah.
That's it.
One of my best friends to this day, I barely know anything about. Shout out Brett Van Adder. He's one of the few people that got me into comedy. He showed me Jesselnick when we were like 12.
Yeah.
And I love this guy so much, but now growing up a little more, I know he's severely autistic. And I think that's what I loved about him because he was just so weird.
Yeah.
He and I would play Uno in our algebra class because we finished the homework early. He was the only person I'd go fishing with or anything like that. And this dude is so weird. Like, if he was like, hey, go to this place, if it was like a Chili's, he wouldn't send me the address. He'd send me the coordinates. And now he's like trying to be an Alaskan bush pilot that just sends over supplies. I'm like, that's the most Brett thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
But isn't the guy who describes things with coordinates who you want to be an Alaskan bush pilot?
Oh, yeah.
That guy's he's got contingencies for disasters already.
I like to think that people are coming to me in a situation where like nuclear winter happens. I'm going to go to him.
Yeah.
So like, I'll help you out and relay the information, but he's the one that's going to save us.
Man, there's parts of my life now where I'm like, maybe I'm a little autistic, But then you see a real autistic person and you're like, no, I'm just grumpy.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of an asshole.
Yeah. No, I just don't want to talk to that person. It's so funny to me that that's such a huge thing that just goes around. You're like, oh, you're probably autistic. This and that and the other.
Yeah.
And you're like, no.
Yeah.
I knew people. It used to be called Asperger's, and now they're all one thing. But like, there were people that were definitely noticeably different. And then there were just weird people. I'm just weird, and that's okay.
I'm just becoming more and more like Bill Burr and Larry. Like, I'm becoming a mix of Bill Burr and Larry David.
That's a good one to have.
I got angry at a valet person last night.
Really?
And I get frustrated, but normally I keep it to myself. But
Let's hear about it. I love incidents because I have so many incidents that we can talk about.
it's just, again, about to be 40, so I'm just becoming a grumpy old man.
That's fine.
And I embrace it.
Yeah.
But I think it's valid.
That's the
Okay?
American dream, is becoming grumpy because you live long enough.
But no, I mean, maybe you can speak on behalf of some of your generation. But for me, I feel like, man, shit was really good for a long time. And what I mean by really good is, like, if you bought a shirt, somebody worked at a shirt factory and they loved making quality shirts, and they're like, no, don't do the cheapest thread. Get this thread. It's the good thread. That shirt's going to last forever,
Right.
Like, I have a jacket that a winter coat that has lasted like a solid almost 10 years now, and it
Right.
looks great still.
Yeah.
So to me, that's like quality, right? You bought an old Toyota pickup, it ran for 30, 40 years,
They
right?
can make those trucks last forever.
That's what I'm saying. And so now it feels like we're just in this perfect part of America where every company is maximum profit. How cheap can we make it?
Yeah.
Right?
It's just as much mass producing as possible.
And that feels like it bleeds over into customer service all the time, right? And then you combine that with COVID and like younger generations being like struggling with social interactions and things like that. I get why it's there, but like, so we valeted, it's like $20 to valet,
Right.
Which is already like, okay, sure.
And then they want a tip at the end.
Of course, yeah. And so we valet, and they were like, well, it's this amount if you want us to park it close. It's this amount if you want us to park it far. And
I don't care. Just bring it back to
just
me.
please park it. Like, and then I like the nuance of me was like, well, shouldn't it be more expensive to park it further away because you have to run further to get it?
Yeah.
But then I'm reminded, like, they don't run to get anything anymore. They're just like casually walking. So when they bring us the car, right? You're valeted, right? So we're gonna bring it right up to where I'm at, and we're gonna get in.
Right.
No, they go across the street and about half a block down. It's in a little alley, and they're like, so it's right there.
What?
And I go, yeah, bring it over here.
You just reparked it? What
yeah,
what are you doing?
and they're like, well, no, we have to do it over there. I was like, no, you don't have to do it over there. You can pull it around here.
Right.
And they're like, well, normally we have our booth over there. And I was like, then take your fucking booth over there.
Right. I don't give a shit about normally. I'm talking about right now.
Yeah, I'm talking about today. Like, we paid for valet. And valet is you take the car and you bring the car to me, not we put it that way, just walk a little bit, take a left.
I could have parked in that alley.
Yeah, it's like, that's not valet. And they're just looking at you with this blank stare. And you're just walking off mumbling, like, this is not fucking valet. No, I don't do blah, 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 and you just sound crazy.
Yeah.
But it's like, again, it's just standards. Like, if I ran a valet thing, I would think, no, we pull it up.
Yeah.
We right here. And like, you're going to do the cheesy valet thing. Like, you're going to get out, pop the door open. Y'all have a good night. Have a good time.
Both sides if you can.
If you can.
So, funny enough, I used to valet cars.
Okay. Well, would you ever send them a block down?
No, God,
okay,
no.
Okay.
I also worked at a steakhouse that didn't get any business, but I didn't I didn't have to unless it was like the holiday season.
Yeah.
But no, like valeting cars is so simple, and it makes me like mad to this day because there are people. I would watch people. They would valet the car. They would know they were coming, and then they'd sit there and they'd wait and clean out the car and block me in from parking other cars.
Yeah.
I like. Not only was that a stupid valet thing, but while on the other side, while you're at the valet, you just watch people in like their normal way of thinking. You're like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You're like, do you not have one simple like A to B to C? Like they're grabbing across the car like this. They're hiding things. I had a guy that would come in every single day. Every day I worked there for 8 months. His name was Joe King. Joe King would get obliterated, pay me $5 and go, you have a good night. And then sometimes I wouldn't be able to give him his keys. He'd come out and say, you're a good kid. Like that was all he would be able to say because he was trashed. But for as much as he was a raging alcoholic and I felt bad giving him his keys every time, that was the most sane man I met.
Right.
Everyone else was just a frantic fucking lunatic.
I will say, like, I like using valet, and it just feels like it's maybe the last, 4 or 5 years this type of stuff's happened. Previously, though, well, first of all, what do you consider a good valet tip? Like a standard, what's the standard?
I was always so content that if you were nice, you could pay me even less.
Okay.
So, like, a $5 tip for a complimentary valet was what all I was expecting.
So, since I worked service industry for so long, it's like what I would do. I never had a nice car that I planned on being like, I'd have like a truck, but it was never like, this is not front row material.
Right.
I know where this is going, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But like if we're going to a steakhouse, right? It's like I'd do a $10 tip on the way in, and then on the way out, if standard $10 tip on the way out. And so I felt like, I will respect this profession.
$20 tip is a $20 tip. That's
what
great.
I'm saying. And it's like, but if I ever had that person where it's like, when I gave the ticket, they turned and sprint. When they came back, I'd throw them like a 20 on top of that first 10 because it's like, I respect a hustler.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And you can hustle and lie to me all day long. You said this earlier. You're like, they're not running. Yeah. I would run until I got around the corner, and then I'd stop.
Trick me.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
I'm dumb. Just let it happen.
If you make me feel like I'm getting good service, I don't care.
Right.
But what I care about, it's like that person, so it's like, this was it was not complimentary. You're paying, right? So you still I threw a tip on the front end. Because I think, like, if I tip you on the front end,
you're going to make sure you do a good job parking
maybe you'll keep out for me.
Yeah.
You'll look out for me a little bit. And it's like, I don't need it to come back quickly. Just, I don't know. Just maybe you'll do your job for me, right?
Right.
And now you just get frustrated because it's like, oh, so you expect the tip, but you also still do a shitty job.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what drives me nuts. It's like, I'm willing to tip well. I don't mind that part of it. I don't mind paying. Right. I don't mind any of it. Just make me feel like it's worth it.
Right. That was my whole life, was growing up taking tips, basically.
Yeah.
And you just look at people and you're like, man, there was a couple that would come in a lot, and by the time I knew I was quitting this job, I had become just calloused and bitter at all these rich ass.
This is still the valet job?
It's still the valet job.
Well, how long were you there? How long does it take to get jaded at a valet job for you?
I started at the end of one summer and worked up until Easter.
Okay.
Which is about the best possible time to quit because I got all of the good holidays,
Gotcha.
which is the best time to be a valet guy.
That makes sense.
I mean, there were plenty of weeks.
People are in good moods, getting liquored up, tipping.
And, it's their one thing. You're like, oh, we go out for Mother's Day every year. Maybe not even Christmas, but we go out for Mother's Day or something like that. And, excuse me. They're already dead set on doing that. They're already dead set on having a good time. And Oh gosh, I lost my train of thought.
We were talking about how you got jaded with valet. You worked there about roughly a year, right?
Yeah, so there were plenty of weeks where I would work 5 days a week, 5 hours a night, and I'd make $5 a day. Thank God for Joe King. I swear. He was literally there every day and saved my ass a couple times.
$5 a day?
$5 a day. And that's towards the end of Easter. I worked the Easter shift and then I was done. Because once you're not in the holiday season, you don't make good money. But I was also the same kid that I would get scheduled first because there were like 2 or 3 total valets with this company and 2 restaurants. So I had earned being like the top valet guy, so I got booked first at Kirby's every time. That was the steakhouse I worked at. And my boss would text me sometimes, you're like, hey, it's Christmas time, da-da-da-da-da, do you want someone? I go, hell no. You keep the other guy home, I'll just, lose some weight and also get $200 a night. So I was really good at saving money up until Easter to the rest of summer happened.
Gotcha.
Is because I made $5K doing all that and saving and still blowing money.
Yeah.
I was such a 16-year-old with that cash.
Oh, yeah.
And then I still saved up $5K, got around, spent all of that $5K before I left for college. But it was just like the people that really got me jaded.
Yeah, but that's a good job, man. I'm really happy that I waited tables and worked retail to get that experience, that people experience.
So I think that
you really appreciate good people now.
Oh yeah,
and I don't mean like, I'm too blessed to be stressed person. That's phony nice.
Yeah, it's phony,
like you said, that guy Joe who's coming out on the surface probably appears like an asshole. Maybe he is. I don't know. But but the fact that when you cut him off and you're like, I can't let you drive, he doesn't berate you. He's like, Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's like, that's all right. That's a nice person who's probably just got some other questionable stuff going on.
Yeah, he just
nice
likes
person.
a drink. Maybe he married one lady 30 years ago, and he's such a good guy that even though he hates her, he just won't get a divorce because he likes her enough. So he drinks at Kirby's every night just to get around it.
Yeah.
And if that's his thing, fine. As long as you're being nice to everyone.
But yeah, those people make up for it. It's like, how many of those people that you see pull up, they're flashy, they got the nice car, never a tip, and it's just like, come on.
Yeah, it was.
We would get that in the restaurant industry sometimes. Somebody comes in, looks like they're balling out of control, and you're like, really?
Yeah.
Really? You're the one who stiffed me.
You said it on Liz's episode, but a 100,000 millionaire?
Yeah.
$100,000 millionaire?
She was talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were just talking about, we live in Dallas, and
got to keep up appearances.
there's a lot of, there are some actual real rich people here.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, we have like Mark Cuban. There are like very wealthy people here.
And you have no idea what they are.
But it just seems like there are too many Mercedes, too many BMWs, too many Lexus. They're not all that rich.
Right.
And even areas like Highland Park, Preston Hollow, that are these rich areas, it's like, I have no doubt that there are actual incredibly wealthy people there.
Oh, yeah.
But some of those, it's like, did you just inherit that house and you're scraping by to pay these taxes every year and keep up appearances?
Yeah.
You can't all be making that much. Because you look at the national average of salaries, it's still a very small percentage of people who make 6 figures or above.
Right.
And it's like, so do they all just live in Dallas?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
You think they're all here? I understand there's millions and millions of people in the United States, and the statistics are going to line up. But math isn't that right. There aren't that many.
Dallas
people.
Also isn't the only rich city, right?
Yeah.
They're like New York has far more wealthy people than we have,
and they look like they own shit in comparison to the Texas millionaires and whatever.
Yeah, that's the dream, right? Is to like be filthy rich driving just like a Toyota.
Right. You have no idea.
Yeah.
I can't remember what country song it was, but there was one that I would always listen to, and it made me laugh because I know of people like this from like my grandparents' town. Mm-hmm. But there's a guy in this song that's sitting on the front stoop of like the courthouse. Mm-hmm. He's wearing overalls and no t-shirt underneath, and he can buy everything you own in $100 bills.
Yeah.
He's just some oil dude, and he's content, that lucky son of a bitch.
Country rich is different.
Oh, yeah.
It's different,
It's
man.
land. That's all it is.
And like, you said you've gone out to Rose City Comedy. It's like, that's one of those towns where it's like, man, you'll be in a small comedy club, and some of those people in that crowd are legit millionaires.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just,
I was talking
blue jeans, tucked in polo shirt,
Yep.
Pretty standard like dad cowboy look. Like,
yeah, they all look like George Strait. You're like, really?
And you're just like, oh, you have like lots of money.
Yeah. Oh, man.
The guy in the New Balance tennis shoes is like filthy rich,
I would love to be that guy. Just someday.
Well,
I would
Adam
love
Sandler's
to
the king of that, right?
Oh, yeah. Just pulling up threes in an and one shorts.
Yeah,
it's
if
incredible.
If he wasn't an actor, and you didn't know it was Adam Sandler, and he had all, you know what I mean? Like the amount of money he has to dress that way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's so great. And you know he spends nothing on clothing, but that does make me think about something. You've seen the movie Inglourious Bastards, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever thought about how Tarantino set out for Adam Sandler to be playing Donnie Donowitz?
No, that's a real thing?
That's a real thing.
Oh, wow.
He wrote that part for Adam Sandler, and then it became whoever it is, the handsome man that it is.
Do you think Adam turned it down, or they just went a different direction?
I can't remember. I think it was more of like a timing thing.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, I think he was filming Little Nicky at the time, and he's like, no, I got to do Little Nicky instead of this amazing part in this amazing movie.
I mean, I would love to see it, because after watching, Uncut Gems, and you realize
he can be serious.
I mean, the tension in that movie, where you're just feeling for this, addict of a gambler, and you're just like, please, just take the money, pay off your debts. Why are you risking it? I mean, he sold it. And for somebody like Adam Sandler, who in his more like family-oriented, silly movies, where he's basically the same character.
Right.
And so you think like, he doesn't really have any range. And then you see him on Uncut Gems, and you're like, damn, he's really good, really good.
Yeah.
So I would love to see him in a Tarantino movie to see how far can you stretch those acting chops.
Right. I want, like, it would be, I'm not going to say I would love to see it, because that's a weird thing to say, but it would have been very interesting to see Adam Sandler hit a Nazi in the head with the baseball
bludgeon
bat.
someone.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
Billy Madison is this guy?
But I mean, because you think about like what was that movie he was in with where it was Anger Management.
Great movie,
right? So you know he can put on rage,
right?
But that's still, even in Anger Management, it's a little bit of silly rage.
Yeah.
But I how scary would real Adam Sandler rage be? Like in that movie, I bet he could turn a switch.
I think he can too. But honestly, now that I'm thinking about it,
you seen Jim Carrey do it, like in that movie 23?
I don't know that I've seen 23.
Ooh, it's a serious Jim Carrey movie where he's he becomes obsessed with the number 23, sees it everywhere in his life, and he may or may not go on like a murderous rampage kind of thing. Like it's
very nice.
It's a psychological thing, and he's just losing control. No comedy at all.
Right. I love when they at least try that.
Robin Williams, his serious roles.
Oh my God. And I hate his comedic roles. Well, I don't hate his comedic roles. I hate his comedy.
Like his stand-up comedy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I just now found out in the later years that there's controversy about, did he steal people's jokes? Did he knowingly steal people's jokes? Or was he just, I don't know if there's any credibility to it. And I love Robin Williams. But there's some people who claim he took people's materials. And then there's other people who claim that he was just so rapid fire with thought that he probably took some of your stuff and never even knew it, because he's just grabbing, he's so fast paced that he's saying a lot of stuff that's just coming to him right then.
Right.
So I don't know.
And I do respect Robin Williams and his stand-up, and I've done that before. Granted, I'm in a very different level. I'm not doing the round. He was just, as soon as I saw him in acting, like not Patch Adams, Mrs. Doubtfire.
I was going to say, what do you think was some of the earlier movies you saw of him? Because he's got different generations that you would have found him.
Yeah. So the first iteration I have of him is his voice acting in the movie Robots.
Yes. Okay.
And I love that because he's so silly, he's so fun, and it took me years to realize that was Robin Williams. Then you're like, Aladdin, got it.
Yeah.
That's Genie for sure. I think I probably watched Good Will Hunting way too young, but I saw him early in my life as that serious role.
Yeah, so for my generation, it was just blockbusters of, like you said, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Right, and he's also got the Mork and Mindy stuff that might be before your time.
That was before me, but it was like Mrs. Doubtfire,
Patch Adams.
Patch Adams. He did the Peter Pan movie.
Oh,
where he,
yeah.
That kind of stuff, where it was all very like 90s kind of campy, silly stuff.
Right.
And he was just megastar, and so then for us, when he did like Good Will Hunting or something later, you're like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, so and I was thinking about it too. He's in Dead Poet Society too, right? Yeah, so I saw those two before I saw Mrs. Doubtfire.
Right, yeah, so Mrs. Doubtfire would be a lot different for you.
Yeah, it was like I saw Bruce Willis trying to crack up. It just made very little sense.
Yeah.
And then I realized like, oh no, my chronologicaling of it is off. I've done that so many times too. Like
that's with music though too. Like there are artists like well, you're talking about country music. It's like Sturgill Simpson's a good example.
Love Sturgill. I was listening to him on the way here.
Okay, depending on which album you come in on, really dictates what kind of artist you think he is at first.
Yeah.
Right?
When he first started, he sounded exactly like Willie Nelson, and Waylon Jennings had a baby. And then he goes into hippie acid rock, southern rock. And then I never got to watch the anime he made to it, but the Sound and Fury. Oh my gosh, I love that album.
Yeah, which is a straight rock album, pretty much. Yeah,
it's just that with a little bit of like leftover psychedelics kind of from those last two albums. But I always loved that because...
Did you see that he did 2 back-to-back bluegrass albums also?
Really?
So he called them Cutting Grass.
Okay.
And the cover is him on like a standard riding lawnmower wearing like his Vans.
Which
is what I love too, is like he's a country artist, but he's not like, let me get my hat and boots on for every single occasion. It's like some people love country music and aren't like that.
Yeah.
And but what he did is he took all of his songs from previous albums and turned them... I used to say he covered his own songs, but then I had a guy on here, Garrett Owen, who's a real good musician. He's like, it's more like he reimagined them, I guess. And I'm like, all right, yeah, fine. I guess he didn't cover his own songs, but
Chris Stapleton did the same thing, but in reverse. So Chris Stapleton had a bluegrass band called the Steel Drivers that I was addicted to.
Yeah.
And I didn't find the Steel Drivers incidentally until he was making it big in country. And like I didn't even know he was a part of the Steel Drivers, and then one day I think my dad told me or something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, first thing I like this way more than the regular country he's putting out now. I still respect this stuff, but I like the old outlaw, the bluegrass,
I would love to meet Chris Stapleton and try to have a conversation with him without getting punched, because that's what I would want to say. It's like, man, you're so good.
Yeah,
you're so good. Like you're talented. Your voice, the way you play guitar, like you're so incredible. I just feel like your albums that you have your most success on, you're just pandering and you held back. You held back and you knew it would sell, and good for you. You got that paycheck. I'm not even hating on you about that. Now that you've made some money, like show me what you can really do.
Do what you want to do.
Show me what's deep in there, not what you think the country people want.
Patronizing was not your biggest goal.
It's like, Tennessee Whiskey. It's like, hey, great hit. You did a wonderful version of that. It's great, and I'm glad that everybody loved it.
And thank you for saying version of it, because no one realizes that was George's song first.
Right. And it's like, it's all good. It's all good, but you just know it's like you can't be that talented. I wish you would have a little more of that Sturgill, where it's like, dude, what do you want to do?
Right.
Screw your label. Screw your fans.
You've got hundreds of thousands of fans. Now it's time to find out which ones are really your fans.
Well, while we're on Sturgill, I didn't like him at first because my wife was showing me songs from his album High Top Mountain, which is one of the more country albums. It's one of the first. So it's like Life Ain't Fair and the World Is Mean, those types of songs. And
gotcha.
Anyhow, it sounded very traditional kind of country, which I don't dislike. But the problem is I got so jaded because when you hear country people now singing about that, you're pandering, dirt road, cold beer, got my woman, whatever.
You have a very modern-centric style house in a suburb. Shut up.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking phony, fake, whatever. Right. And that's my own ignorance. And then his album, A Sailor's Guide to Earth, she was playing that, and she didn't tell me, like, listen to this or anything. It was just on. And that album, he's switching into, like, Motown beats and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's this country twang, and you're like, who's that? And she's like, it's that guy you don't like, Sturgill. And I'm like,
no, I like this. No, keep this going.
We went to watch his concert out in Grand Prairie, and watching his show is when I was 100% sold on him. It's like, because now I finally put a picture.
Is he a good performance?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that's awesome.
He's good. The only thing I regretted about that concert is he just, for whatever reason, he couldn't bring the horn section that he plays with on that album.
Yeah.
So it was him on guitar, a keyboard player, drummer, bassist.
Okay.
And it's at the big Grand Prairie Theater out there by the horse track.
The Trust?
Whatever it's called now.
I think so, yeah.
The one right there off the highway, and it's the big, like, 6,000 seat theater or whatever. But first of all, I always thought, again, my own ignorance, I was like, so he's probably dude wearing cowboy hats, boots. He's going to hold an acoustic guitar up front and barely play it, and he's going to have a really great band. Right. So when I see him come out with an electric guitar, I was like, okay. And he's just wearing like I don't know, maybe he was wearing like a Vietnam jacket or something. You know what I mean? Like you said, acid hippie looking guy. Yeah. I'm like, okay, all right, this is interesting. And but what was crazy is I didn't know he could play guitar. Right. I didn't know he was that good. And he was having some kind of technical difficulty. Like something wasn't coming through the monitors or the guitar wasn't working. Something was messing up, and it was bothering him through that first song. Mm-hmm. And they like thought they had it fixed, and then they didn't. So he like kind of gets pissed. He goes over to the side of the stage, and he's like talking to somebody, and you can tell it's like, what the fuck, fucking fix this, man. Blah, blah, blah. And so I guess while they're working on it, he just had like a fuck it moment. He just grabbed a different guitar, came out, kicked on all the distortion, and then he just does like a 2 or 3 minute solo where he's just like rage soloing, and he's playing with these phenomenal musicians that I found out later, he's played with these people for years. And
Right.
they're those ones they can just take these cues off each other. And so it's just this, all of a sudden, normally like the big jam a band would have like towards the end of the concert to be like, thank you, good night.
Right.
All of a sudden, that's how he's opening it.
Yeah.
Everybody's like taking their
man.
turn with the solo, and he's just going nuts. And and then finally, I guess they get the problem fixed. He ends the solo, and he's all cool, Sturgill. And he says something to the effect of like, I just had to work a few things out, I guess, or something like that. Right?
You're so cool, Sturgill.
Yeah, right, yeah. And then he just goes back into his set list, and I was like, all right, I'm fucking sold. This guy's incredible.
Yeah,
and then
man.
the second part of that concert that was just amazing. So he's rocking out, and then he comes out to do a version of one of his songs acoustic, and it's like he lets his band go off stage for a minute, get a break, get a water break or something, and it's just a little spotlight on him, and he's got 6,000 people or however many that place holds just silent.
Yep.
Pin drop silence while he's playing this acoustic song.
That's so cool.
And you're like, yeah, this guy's the real deal. Like,
Yeah.
this is
Oh.
not phony. Like, he doesn't need... And again, he has this small 4-piece band just in the middle of this giant stage, and you're
Yep.
like, it's the real deal. And so it's like, when I see guys like Chris Stapleton, it's like, I know you've got that there. I know that guy has been going to like blues jams or something and just wailing on
Right.
it. You're that guy.
You were that guy. At
Let
least
me
back
see
then.
it.
Right.
Give me some
Bring it
more of
back.
that. Like,
I
but again,
love-
I feel like if I told him that, he'd be like, how about I punch you in your teeth?
Yeah. Oh, here's what I made last year. You're like, okay, keep doing it.
If you do hear this, Chris, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. I just want to see. I know there's layers. I know there's deeper layers to you. And because that album where Sturgill went more like he mixed country and Motown and rock and these things, that is definitely his most successful album.
I think that one's Turtles All the Way Down.
No, after that,
After that, okay.
he won a Grammy for it because
Okay.
the big joke was he's winning a Grammy for Best Album of the Year for country music, and then he's not invited to the CMT Awards, the Country Music Awards. So he took his award and he took his acoustic guitar, and out in front of the event, like by the fences where people are coming in and stuff, he's just playing songs, and he's busking, and he's got his Grammy in his guitar box.
That's
hoping people will
amazing.
throw quarters and dollars in.
What a guy. I love that. Like, going back to the angsty, revolting stuff, that's the kind of shit that I love. That's why I
real.
fell in love with... I use it as a joke now, but I heard it when I was in college. Y'alternative. That's what I describe Sturgill as. He's
Yeah.
country, but, he's country in the same way that, like, he grew up in a country town, has all the antics, but he's not going to be one of these phony, I wear a cowboy hat and ride a horse. And you're like, okay, well, you pulled up in a Yukon, so...
Well, and I loved how lyrically, like a lot of his stuff. So you have these other people that I really like, and they are constantly trying to sound. They want to sound like that old style of music, which I like. But they also dress in a way that's like you wouldn't dress like that today.
Yeah.
And it's fine if you do it on the stage. I
You're
don't-
wearing a rodeo shirt? Have you ever been
Yeah.
on top of a bull, you jackass?
Yeah, and then they also they'll write their lyrics in a way where they're using really old words. They're like, I call you up on my telephone, and it's like people text now. They don't do that.
No one said radio in years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and things like that. So I really liked on Sturgill's album where he's talking about how he'd gotten kicked out of the Navy, and he was talking about how he's sleeping on a futon in his floor in his place, like trying to get his shit together at rock bottom.
Right.
And he's like, one of his lyrics is like, maybe get high and play a little GoldenEye on that old 64. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how did you take Nintendo 64 and GoldenEye and make it sound old and country?
Right.
But it's like, Nintendo 64 already sounds old.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you just put in these modern terms now, in 30 years, they're going to be old things that we're all... Like, no one's using a payphone right now.
Right.
Talk about how you're texting and Instagram and Facebook and the shit you're using, because that's going to sound old.
Don't put TikTok in your song, please, for the love of God. But
But if you did, it's like TikTok is going to come and go.
yeah,
People don't think it will, but
Shit, it
everything...
already did.
Everything, yeah, everything comes and goes. So it will be like, what was TikTok? And then be like, oh, well, we used to have this thing. We'd watch videos. It started with dancing.
well, you know how
and
your
then-
uncle can't
then the
really think for
government
himself.
banned it.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to sound old as shit. It's going to sound like you're talking about prohibition.
Yeah.
And so it's like, don't try to sound like you're living 60 years ago right now. Just live right now, but do it in that style of music.
Right.
And I'm cool with that.
Did you ever watch, as much as I'm not a huge fan of him anymore, did you ever watch Rogan's podcast?
Oh, yeah. I actually love Rogan's podcast.
I-
I know he's polarizing, but I think if you know, like, first of all, he openly says, like, hey, if you get your advice from me, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a comic.
Yeah. And so
and that's what I like about Joe
Yeah.
is it's just somewhere across the line, I even liked the episodes that weren't around comics. Like my favorite Joe Rogan episode was an episode with, I believe the guy's name was Forrest Galenti.
Yeah.
A wildlife guy that got trapped by 3 wolves in Alaska.
Who doesn't want to hear that story?
Exactly. And you just, it's supposed to be like that because Joe Rogan's a comic and he's supposed to funny up that terrifying story. And then somewhere I don't think he's actively trying to be a political person, but like people are trying to make him that. You're like, no, he's a comic. Eddie Murphy wasn't a fucking politician ever.
I think now more than ever, and what I mean, I should say, I think most recently with the election, I think that this is the most he's decided to, like, I'm going to become political.
Right.
Because once you have Trump and J.D. Vance on, like, you're taking some political stances here.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I've listened to his show for years, and I'm like you. I like, the comic ones are great. I like listening to the comics, but I really like his show because he'll bring on people that I've never, ever heard of.
And that he's fascinated by.
Yeah. And then also, like, I tend to lean liberal, but I definitely don't go far left, and I definitely don't go far right.
Yep.
I think a lot of people are really centered.
I think 80% of the population is pretty centered.
Well, so like when he brings on, Ted Nugent, who I know is very, very conservative. We got a lot of different ideas, but also I love Stranglehold. I love the song Stranglehold that he did. I'm a musician.
Cat Scratch Fever, are you kidding?
I can appreciate that, but, it's like when Ted Nugent opens his mouth, it's like he kind of annoys me. I don't really like a lot of what he says. But I do appreciate, if I'm not going to like something and I have the opportunity to listen to this guy for 2 hours, it's still eye-opening to go, well, I still disagree with him, but I really see how he got there.
Yes.
And it's like, we're all a little different, and I don't think he's like a horrible person. We just have some different views on how the world should be run. And so it's like, I like that I view myself as a liberal, that I can go listen to Trump and J.D. Vance on his show, who I'm going into it going, I don't know how much I'm going to change my mind, but it seems foolish.
I'm curious.
This guy could potentially be the president, and now is the president, but this was before. But it's like, it seems kind of foolish to not listen to this episode and not at least hear what this thing is before I go, this is bullshit.
Right. And
I mean, it's wise. And so I like that, I'll get some different perspectives on that show that I wouldn't get in my everyday life.
Yeah. You know what? Dealing with someone's perspectives was how it was always supposed to be.
It's supposed to be.
George Washington, a guy that wrote with a feather, and this is a Joe Rogan bit, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, like, he wrote all that and even said, don't make 2 parties. That's going to make everything terrible. And he said that 300 years ago.
Well, and I agree with him, like, about, I mean, even with Joe, it's like there's things, if I was talking to him in person, like he talks about masks a lot. And it's how, like, masks don't fucking work and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, he is correct. Like, the way they were talking about coronavirus and masks probably didn't do much. But, like I was listening to it today where they were talking about, should we make it illegal to wear a mask? Because now people are putting those on and going to, like, rob convenience stores and stuff.
Right.
And it's like I said, I work in the healthcare field, and they'll have precautions. So, like, if you come in and they think you might have the flu, right? You come into, like, an emergency room.
Right.
I got body aches and blah, 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 I'm running a fever. And they're like, he might have flu. Well, they might put you on something called droplet precaution. So all that means is if we come into your room, we're going to wear one of those masks that we all wore during COVID. Because if you have the flu and it's transmitted through droplets, we as the workers don't want to get the flu.
Right.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, at the start of the COVID stuff, I think when there were all these unknowns of how it transmitted, that's what everybody was thinking is, ooh, we should do this because if it's droplet, it'll stop it. And they found out later on, whatever, that wasn't as effective as they thought. And it's like, that's fine. But also, I'd rather be an idiot wearing a mask. I'd rather look foolish 10 years later going, we put the mask on, than to be the one who, like, no, I didn't do any of the shit.
Right.
And I got this virus that we didn't know much about, and now it has these latent effects 10 years later.
Yep.
And so, but now it's like, I think now more people are aware, it doesn't even have to be COVID. I think now more people realize, like, hey, if I feel like I have a cold or the flu.
Because of COVID, let's not test this.
Maybe if I have the flu and I'm running to the store real quick, it's okay for me to wear a mask.
Right.
Because I'm trying to go, I don't want to get y'all sick, but I had to come here and get some food and these things, right?
And $10 for delivery fee.
Yeah, so it's like stuff like that I would disagree with them on about, hey, I don't think we need to ban masks.
Yeah.
There's also, like, polite people who just are trying not to get sick or trying to keep others from getting sick.
And, if that mask is what keeps them safe at night,
sure.
Who cares?
Yeah. Like, if you're doing your own thing and you're not bothering anyone,
right.
What do we care?
Right.
And so but I still like hearing that side because there's a half of the country right now that thinks thinks a lot of the ways he does.
Yeah.
Right. And we all got to live together.
Right.
We all got to figure out how to make this work together, you know?
Yeah. All these people that are Trumpers and all these people that are I'm an anarchist, if anything. I really don't believe any of it works. And like the Wild West shouldn't look good to me, but it does.
I shared this thing in my stories today. This is exactly how I feel. Where this person was like, you know, it was like the working class. Hey, can you guys help us out? And it was like, Republicans, no. And it was like, Democrats, no. Heart emoji, pride flag, you know, like what, you know,
but
like,
love,
like BLM, you know,
right.
And it's like, yeah, they're both fucking you,
yeah,
you know, and all of you should be frustrated with the political system right now. You know, if you're a Democrat, in my opinion, you should be very frustrated that party just tried to cram 3 candidates that they knew would lose, right? Like Hillary, Biden got lucky, and then Kamala was a bad candidate.
Yep.
And if you're a Republican, you should be frustrated that, like...
That's the guy?
Well, when he ran the first time, they all assumed they had it locked down because they had their standard candidates that they were going to run. You know, they had like who was it, like Jeb Bush?
Yeah, it was Jeb Ben Carson originally.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like Ben Carson. He was just smart. Like, I've always believed, like, can we just have a president that's a dork again? Like, I just want a nerd.
But they were doing what the Democrats just did. They assumed because it was these, like, company men who'd been Republicans, and Republicans are always going to vote this way. All we got to do is this, that. And Trump came in and destroyed it.
Right.
And so if you're part of the Republicans, you should be saying, how do we get this back under control where we get amazing candidates again?
Yeah.
Both constituents for each party should be super frustrated that it came to this.
Right.
You know?
I can't remember who said it. It might have been a famous comic. It might have been a friend. But someone said, you're like, you know, man, it's just like picking between repeating the year in summer school. Like, both are terrible.
Yeah.
Both are going to kill you for that elongated time. But after like 4 years, no one's going to care again.
Yeah, because I don't think he's going to rip our country apart. I don't think he's going to do a lot of things that I like.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're getting destroyed.
I'll put it like this. I don't think he's going to do anything. I think he's just going to live there for 4 years again.
He wanted to win president again because he lost.
Yeah. And he wanted to see if he can do it while being a felon.
Yeah. And, well, that was the other thing, too. It's like somebody, probably some comic, I don't know who I'm not giving credit to, but it definitely is not my original thought. But they were like, we're in a weird time where all the Back the Blue people are supporting a convicted felon to be president. Mm-hmm. And then all of the Black Lives Matter, anti-police brutality are supporting a prosecutor who has definitely locked up a lot of black people. You know? And it's like, it's all flipped, and everybody's just tribal about it. And, you know, they should just be knocking down the door going, what happened to people that actually knew how to fix problems?
Right.
You know, let's start with the potholes. Let's move to infrastructure, then let's get to like education or something. Like, let's just work on the standard problems that help everyone.
Yeah,
you know?
Like the things that you can't bitch about. Like, if anyone is bitching about our schools need to be better, shoot that guy. Like, that guy doesn't make any sense. You're like, no, they don't need any more money. We're like, obviously we do.
Yeah,
because textbooks are still saying terrible things.
And like, how about we just get a lot of people who go, hey, we gave you $1 billion. Show me exactly what you did.
Where it is. How do you lose $1 billion?
Down to the penny, I need to see where it went.
Right.
And when people are like, we can't really do that, let's fire them.
Yeah.
And then
here's the thing about that.
Let's put them in jail.
Yeah.
You know, like here locally, you know, and I'm pretending to be an expert here about ERCOT. Like, were you living here when the grid went down?
A few years ago, or
Yeah,
was it
a few years ago.
No, I was still in Stephenville in college. And
Okay, so-
out there it was even worse. It was crazy.
When it froze for like a week,
Yeah.
and then the grid went down, and people literally died because the grid went down. Did anyone go to jail for that?
No.
Did anyone, like, I feel like if you're at
It was-
ERCOT, you should go, all right. Even if you have to draw short straws, it's like, well, Jimmy,
One of you're the scapegoat. Sorry, buddy. We
got to pin it on
royally.
somebody.
Yeah.
People died.
Yeah,
And,
I was not almost died, but I definitely could have gotten way sicker than I was, because out in Stephenville, the electronic infrastructure is not great because it's a bunch of dairy cattle farmers. There's not much out there already built.
Yeah.
So we lost power for a week, and it was to the point where I was throwing food in the snow outside just to stay okay.
Yeah.
I was begging, because I'm not I'll never ask anyone for anything because I don't want to feel like a burden. Mm-hmm. And as much as I hated it, I had to ask my best friend, or my roommate's now wife, love y'all, Justin and Tanner. I had to ask if I can come over to her apartment and borrow their shower. Mm-hmm. And then I got there and I was still shivering. I was so cold that I was pale, is what they were saying. Like, there was no blood moving in my body. My dog was with me, and they're like, oh, my God, I forgot about your dog. I go, yeah, no. I've been having to hold her like a body pillow every night because she's been shaking.
And it's not like, oh, those Texans don't know how to handle this weather, like just because it was below freezing. It's like, no.
That is true, but this was different.
But that particular one, it's like we were getting below 10 degrees with an infrastructure that was never built for that.
Right. We don't have the things to get salt trucks.
Yeah, I don't care who you are. It's like once you get close to zero, it's unless you live in like Canada and you're like, this is just summer for us, you know.
And the other thing about like Canada is somewhere where it gets zero like that, it's 0 and snow. It's not 0 and sleet. Mm-hmm. Like it's still sleet.
And
here.
They have plows. They bury the pipes deeper. The houses are insulated differently. It's all built to withstand that.
Yeah.
And it just blows. I mean, how many people? Like how much did our insurance rates go up here locally just because of everyone's burst pipes, right? So it's like that company or that council is messing things up on a huge scale of like we're probably all paying higher premiums now because of the insurance payouts just to fix floods in your houses from pipes and stuff, and none of y'all got in trouble for it.
Yeah. And the thing is, there are a lot of people that got those insurance claims corrected, but those insurance claims, that's their whole job is turning those down for whatever reason.
Oh, yeah, to try to not pay it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a situation where we had to go through that where a roof got ripped off of our home from high winds. Yeah, we thought we were in a tornado. It was a thing. Like we were running to a closet as the roof's peeling up and like windows are blowing out, and we're like, it's a tornado. This has happened. I've made it this many years, no tornado. We're in it. But later on, we found out no, it's just weird winds.
Yeah.
But when we dealt with that, it's like all the little tricks they were trying to use, and they make you become a jerk in order to get what you're owed. Mm-hmm. It's like we've been paying into this policy.
Yeah.
Pay it, like they had this weird thing where like so the roof came off and then it rained for like 4 or 5 hours. It was half of the house that was destroyed.
Oh my God.
And so the rain was just soaking into the drywall and everything, right? So we're when they came to start fixing all this, they're like, yeah, what we'll do is we'll cut the bottom half of all the drywall out and then we'll just put fans in there to dry it. And they were literally saying things like, no, it'll dry. That's why it's called drywall. And it's like, that's not why it's called drywall. But
yeah, jackass, don't try and bullshit a bullshitter.
And so it took me like, because I'm thinking, well, we got insurance. They'll handle it, whatever, And then it took me, I was like, well, I'll demo the rest of this and take pictures of the mold and stuff growing on the backside.
Yep.
And I had to tell them, like, stop, get these fans out of my house. We're taking the drywall down. And we're going to put new drywall up.
Yeah.
And this is why we pay insurance.
We can't save it. That's how black mold starts.
Yeah.
And then you're just fighting them on that. And you're like, how am I fighting you on fixing my home? My home has a moonroof in it now. Can you please help?
Yeah. I mean, we had a whole thing with that. It's a big, long story. But it was a condo. And so the HOA dealt with putting the roof on. And they had some issues. So for whatever reason, my personal belief, which is not proven, is I think they were stealing money from the HOA fund.
Oh, yeah.
And they were just delay. And it wasn't until we threatened lawsuits from an attorney that all of a sudden the roof got thrown on somehow.
Right, because they can't afford for you to go back into the ledger book.
Yeah. So for that half of the home, it was under a tarp for, I think, 6 to 7 months, if I remember correctly.
Good Lord.
So we're dealing with that while talking to the insurance company who's like, well, it's like, man, just now. And to think about those people in like the Carolinas from the hurricane, all the rain that they got, and then now the people in California and the people in Hawaii who've been forgotten about, and having to deal with all that insurance nonsense. And so it's like when you think about these presidential candidates, it's like, can we find someone who goes, hey, we got to make sure Hawaii's good, California's fixed up, and the people in Carolina, like, let's get all that taken care of.
Yeah, before we send $3 billion to Canada or whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, who knows? I mean, I think well over $100 billion has been sent to Ukraine now. And people
that area of the world wanted to kill us not that long ago.
I'm just saying.
I'm not saying they wanted to, but that side of the world did.
But also, we all know now, right? We all know now. It's like we're not going to Ukraine because we're virtuous and helping the world. There's something there that y'all want as the government,
right? We wouldn't have been in Iraq if it weren't for the oil.
Come on.
Yeah.
And so again, it's like, and what they do is they distract you with, hey, they're going to ban abortion, or hey, they're going to put, all men in locker rooms. It's like they get you squabbling over that while they're just cashing out over there.
Right. And, going back to Trump, and I was wrong in this, I'll say that very upfront. But like when I first heard all the stuff about, was it Trump saying he wanted to buy Greenland?
Oh, I heard a little blip about it, yeah.
So that's what I heard too. It turns out what I was hearing was misinformation. It was just like someone played a game of telephone and it got changed a bit.
Yeah.
But as soon as I heard that, I'm like, there's got to be oil in Greenland. And then I looked at it, I was like, oh, cool, it's one of the last big reserves. Awesome.
Like, again, growing up, so I graduated high school in 2003. So we're like the 9/11 generation, right?
Right.
And so that's like one of our running jokes is, it's like, oh, Greenland has oil? Do they need some freedom? Let's go give them some freedom,
Right.
They need some democracy over there, right?
Okay, so you graduated in 2003. You're the 9/11 generation.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of it.
Is that the last time y'all felt unified? Like as a country, not as a world? Because I've been having this weird thought process, but I think it's, as sad as it is, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone that was in your tribe thousands of years ago, everyone there had to be cool, and everyone was cool because it was a problem if someone from the village and neighborhood over came over and started to fuck shit up. You all had to be good because you had to fight that off. Mm-hmm. I think hating something else makes everyone closer, which is a problem that I think that much.
Yeah, it does. It does. Like if you have hard times.
Right.
So that's one of the things like that's why I get real bothered when and to be clear, like I'm not a Trump supporter, but I was certainly not a Harris supporter either.
Yeah.
I think
I haven't supported a politician in ever.
Well,
I don't think.
And like some of my family members who are far more liberal, they get frustrated with me about it. But and I know how people listening to this are going to think, but like I would have been more upset, I think, if Harris won, even though I don't support Trump at all.
Yeah.
But it's like I hate that I'm in that situation. But what I will say, like 9/11, that was definitely like an outside thing where people were like, "Oh my God, like is a plane going to hit my town? Is there going to be a bomb? Blah blah blah."
So like people were just nicer to everyone, or maybe I'm making that up because I was two.
But I was also in a small town, so they were nicer there.
Okay.
But then when some, I don't even know what culture they were because I was young. But
some people that were darker than us.
Someone bought, so the local gas station was owned by this good old boy, Willard.
Oh, God.
Willard and his family.
Willard and his wife, Tammy.
And they weren't bad. They were fine. But they owned the gas station in the town. And then they owned like a feed store, which was right next door.
Right.
And at some point, they decided to sell the gas station. And I think they kept the feed store. But I don't know if they were Indian or Middle Eastern or Filipino. I don't know. As a kid, I remember they were brown.
Right.
Right. And so they had the gas station around 9/11. So you definitely saw they were not liked, and now most people didn't care. Most people weren't bothered, but you definitely had
the dum-dums.
Oh yeah. Like, we all know what the N-word is, right? So have you ever heard about like sand N-word? Okay. So they'd get called that kind of stuff. Like I specifically remember some guy, like gas prices were going up and some guy's like getting frustrated, and I'm sitting there with like, a chocolate milk and something. And I'm probably like a teenager at this time.
Yeah.
And, I just remember him being in front of me and I'm like, you need to fucking come down on that shit out there, you filthy,
Yikes.
And he's like, and now give me 10 on pump 5 or whatever, and those people are just like 10 on 5.
Yeah, this is my job.
Because they're just thinking like, we bought a gas station. We're just trying to work, who knows? But so there was that aspect, I remember kids in my school, because we had discussions about it, about like what this was. And it was like their early version of like therapy, I guess. Like, let's talk about it as a group. I know you all have whatever. And so like, I remember this one kid, he probably didn't even mean what he said. He's parroting what his dad probably said at the house.
Yeah.
Right. They're watching the news and someone,
poor kid.
So you have some kid who's like a little more well-rounded who's like, well, I mean, nobody wants to go to war and nobody should have to suffer those things and blah, 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 And then he's like, I think we just nuke the whole goddamn country. It's like, so you did have, in terms of like, if you were somebody who resembled anyone that we thought did 9/11,
right,
you were probably getting some hard days. But as far as stereotypical looking Americans, right? Black, white, Asians probably weren't getting hate. Hispanics weren't getting hate. You had to have looked some sort of brown, Middle Eastern, Indian, like we look like the terrorist stereotype.
Yeah.
They probably had a bad time, but I think the rest of the country really was coming together. I mean,
that's a good point.
Especially like in New York. I mean, how many people were like trying to help with cleanup and all these first responders? And like, if you were a first responder in New York, you were probably eating free for a long time.
Right.
And then what I'll say is like kind of growing up, like around in Texas anyway. It's like when you see a big hurricane hit, Houston or something, the whole city of Houston all of a sudden comes together and people are like, let's get boats, let's get pickup trucks, let's help people.
Yeah, I've had a cousin go down and do that. It was like the Bayou Brigade or something like that.
So they will do that.
Yeah.
And those people on the whole, as a group, not racist, not concerned about they're just helping people. And so I think that's what reminds you there's good people.
It's literally a mass email of some kind that they post on social media asking people who have boats already
That's it.
to come.
And these good old boys who you would stereotype as a bunch of racists are the ones going like, let's get the fucking boat in the water, let's do something.
Yeah.
And so the first time I feel like that didn't happen was COVID.
Yeah. That was the first
COVID-
time it was selfish.
COVID was different. So I don't know if it's because it's a natural disaster that isn't physically affecting things. Like it didn't knock your house down. It didn't burn anything up. It didn't flood your home.
And by just going outside, you could get it as far as the news was spreading.
Yeah, so it's like you don't like if when you were getting COVID, it felt like I slapped you across the face, like COVID hit me.
Yeah.
You would think about it. But I think because it's not like that and it's more mysterious, and then politics got involved.
Yeah.
And that was maybe one of our bigger natural disasters where people were like, I think we can make some money off this.
Yeah.
Right? And people can debate that as much as they want. I don't really care. But that was the first kind of big thing I saw where the country did not come together. They got really divided.
Yeah.
And but I mean, like where you live now, it's like if 10 of your homes got hit by a tornado in that area, I bet the neighbors would be coming over and be like, "Oh my God, what do you need?"
anything?
And so I think it's bullshit, man. It's just social media and
Everyone's pushing fear, and it's pissing me off. Like, as soon as I'm getting older and now I have all these freedoms to, like, do whatever I have to do just to survive, all I'm seeing is everyone's just pushing fear and hate constantly. And then you go out into the real world and you're like, no, you're all so nice.
Yeah.
You just get so afraid that you fear, like, you're pushing fear on everyone else.
I didn't really think about it in the way I just kind of was talking about it until I heard Ari Shaffir. Again, these comics who are supposed to be just, they're just jokesters.
Yeah.
End up being like,
The amazing racist is telling us how to be better people?
he was talking about, somebody was quizzing him down about like, don't you see all this anti-Semitism and all this kind of stuff? Aren't you're Jewish? Aren't they doing this to you? And he's like, no. He's like, I go all around the country. I go all around the world. He goes, I do not experience that. Everywhere I've been, to me, people are very kind, and it's not because they know I'm a comic or something.
Right.
He's like, I don't see any of this. He's like, I see people talking about it on social media, but I'm not seeing it in the real world towards me.
Right.
And he goes, and I look very Jewish. My name is very Jewish. I don't hide being Jewish. And that's when you realize it's like, if I kind of pause and look around, I don't hear people shouting racist slurs every day. And I live here in Texas. Shouldn't I be hearing it?
Yeah.
If we're all a bunch of racists down
Yeah,
there?
the Bible Belt, a.k.a. the most racist part of the universe, which it probably...
Look, those people are...
Never mind.
Those people are here.
Right.
But I don't think it's the whole.
No.
I think if you go to Dallas, Fort Worth, and the cities in between, if you're chill, most people are pretty nice.
Yep.
And
9 times out of 10, the racist thing is coming from the person you don't think it's coming from.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like, I mean, as much as you're doing comedy now and going out to clubs, and as much as you see comedians, push the limit, and it's like open mics can be a train wreck for misunderstandings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's just trying to be funny, and they say something horrible, and they're like, well, no, hold on, How many times have you seen somebody get completely offended, and now everybody's angry? Most people are just like, I mean, we knew what he was going for.
Yeah.
It doesn't really go off the rails ever, does it?
Uh,
Have you seen anyone like get in a fight about like, I don't see people just shouting racist things. And
I've seen verbal altercations. I've also only ever seen any sort of a semblance of an altercation at an open mic too. It's not people that are going to shows deserving to be on these shows.
Yeah.
They're not. I'm not going to say they're not testing the waters, because people are pulling risky things out of their ass and doing it, and it works, and that's why they're getting these shows. But like, no one's getting booked that's just a shock comic.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We went to the Kessler last night.
Oh, yeah?
wife
How'd
and
that
I.
go?
It was great. Which, by the way, the Kessler, it's a music place.
It was Pazvar, Stogner,
Linda Stogner,
Danny
Michael
Tran.
Pazvar, Danny Tran, Seth Cowles, and Coles. I always say his name weird, but you know what I'm
I think
talking.
it's Coles.
Anyway, and Seth, he's been in the scene for a while. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. And then Des O'Neill.
Oh, that's who the other one was. Yeah.
So here's the thing: we've got a white woman, we've got a half Pakistani, half white guy,
And
we've got a black
older
guy,
white woman.
Age, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so we're bringing age, we're bringing race, we're bringing all these different experiences. Because Danny Tran, I think he might be a little younger too.
Yeah, he's somewhere in like the 25 to 28 range, from Atlanta.
And guess what? They were all talking in different versions. Like Linda's talking about things that might be viewed as like ageist, because she had these older parents. And then Des, Pazvar, Danny Tran, they're talking about like white people, black people, Asian people, Pakistan, Mexican. It's like it's all going around. No one in that crowd was like, I got to get out of this filth.
Yeah.
Just all these damn racists on stage. Everybody was just laughing and having a good time. I think that's what the majority of the country's like.
Right.
If you're not, because there's a big difference in making like a little funny joke about the differences between you and me.
Yeah.
Versus like, hey, you need to get the fuck out of this neighborhood.
Right.
And like those are such stark differences. And
Yeah.
I think just if more people would appreciate nuance and intent. Was that person saying something that they thought would make you laugh and make you like, oh, I'm trying to be friendly to you? Or were they trying to offend you and get you out of their life?
Right.
Usually it's the former,
Oh, man. So, like we were talking about earlier, I was in college in Stephenville. Stephenville that's probably where you're going to meet all the racists. It's either you're going to meet a racist man or you're going to meet a black dude that's on the football team. Like, it's one or the other. And I loved pushing the boundaries of certain things like that because I worked at an HEB. So I was right in the hub, at the epicenter of everything.
Yeah.
And I had...
Which HEBs are a wild cultural mix of everything there, too.
Wow.
Right? That's a great hub if you want to study things.
Yeah, it's a God bless your heart until you mess up one thing on your curbside order, and then it is every slur you could have ever thought of. And you're like, man, I'm white. Like
it's God bless your heart. And then when you mess up, it's bless your heart.
Yeah.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah, it's real bad. But I had a buddy, he was half black, and I'm that way in that I always kind of push things, but I'll also be the first one to call me a white trash honky.
Same.
I
joke all the time about how I grew up in a small town. And they're like, oh, a country? I'm like, no, more like meth, white trash.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh.
No. I do have a cowboy hat and a pair of boots, but I feel like such a dingus if I put those on.
I didn't get those until I moved to Dallas, though.
Right. These were for a wedding once, and I hated it.
Yeah.
But I would walk around the store, and if I saw someone that in Stephenville, if you look at someone, you're like, that guy's probably racist. You've got a 50-50 shot. Everywhere else in the world, probably not as much. But like, you'd look at a guy, and I'd walk over to my friend who was half black, and I go, "What's up, hot chocolate?" And then I'd like smack him on the ass.
Yeah.
And he'd laugh, and then the old white guy wouldn't, and then I'd laugh. That was my favorite
and it's like
part.
Again, intent. It's like, I mean, nowadays, if somebody else heard you call him hot chocolate on his behalf, they'd probably be like, "Hey,
whoa,
you gonna cut that out?" And it's like,
whoa, dude,
we're buddies.
Yeah, I just told him to give me a kiss. Shut up.
Yeah, right.
We're gonna go home. He's gonna smoke my eighth, and then we're gonna have a good time.
Well, that's like, have you seen the South Park episode about using the word fag?
Oh God, I love that episode.
And that's really what it is. Like, let's think about intent.
Right.
And now that word specifically, it got used so much in the derogatory thing. It's like, I can understand how you're wanting to move away from that word. But I think that episode is great about just words versus intent.
Right.
And
moderation is also a big thing in this part too.
And it's like, I'm saying it right now because I'm talking about that episode, but I am not using that word every day.
Yeah.
I'm not using that word in conversations. I'm using it right now for this.
Right.
But yeah, it's like,
I think I've called women that word more than anyone else.
The greatest thing I ever read online of like my group of friends is so it's like, it's so stupid. Even this, you feel like, better think about how I'm going to phrase it, which I know on your end, you're like, what is he about to say here? But so it's like some of the gay coworkers that I had, the gay guy coworkers, one of them was just the more feminine, had the affect when they speak, and a bit, it's like more of the stereotype, like, I'm a fabulous gay man kind of thing.
A twink.
Yeah. The other one is like, you didn't know he was gay until you met at a work function, and he's like, so this is my husband. And you're like, oh, hey, what's up? Okay, yeah, so anyway. And you have the two quick...
Oh!
You have the 2 second...
That's why your nails look so good all
you have
the
the 2 second processing of like, oh, okay, they're gay. Didn't know that, now I know it. Anyway, hi, nice to meet you. So anyway, the more flamboyant one was like on vacation, and he's doing like the typical thing of like a young person who got in a brand new relationship where they're like posting all the pictures, like, look at my new man, everything's great, oh, we're still in love or whatever. And they
love y'all, don't care.
Yeah, and to be clear, like if that was a heterosexual relationship, I'm like, no one cares.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, but they're posting all these pictures of this trip they're on, and it's just like lovey-dovey, all this kind of stuff. And the gay guy who's not like that commented, and he's like, you need to cool it. Y'all are really looking like a couple fags. It just hearing a gay man say that to, or reading a gay man saying that to a gay man, I was like, I don't know that gets that may be the funniest that word will ever be used.
Right.
Or like a person like Mateo Lane.
Oh my God.
It's like, come on.
Mateo Lane makes me laugh
Fantastic.
more than any. Well, honestly, his friend Nick might make me laugh even more than Mateo Lane.
I think I know who his friend Nick is.
So they do a podcast together now. Mateo has pulled him up on stage for when he does Mateo
for some
and
reason
Friends.
I was thinking maybe that was like his boyfriend or something.
No, his boyfriend
is he like a
like
skinnier guy?
skinny, really tall, sounds exactly like Squidward.
Yeah, and he's kind of like ignorant to a lot of things, so Mateo's kind of teaching him a lot of things.
So
Gotcha.
their
Yeah.
biggest clip ever was obviously Mateo is a very Italian dude,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is from scratch in Mateo's eye.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick, his best friend, his favorite place in the world is Olive Garden. He's like, "Oh, Nick, no, we can't go to the Olive Garden." He's like, "But it's about family."
Because I've listened to Mateo on like multiple podcasts talk about like he speaks Italian very well, and then he goes to Italy and the culture and blah blah blah. So yeah, the thought of him going to like Olive Garden. By the way, Mateo's I don't know what the name of it was. I think it's Heartbreaks and Hair Plugs, his special.
Yes, so great.
I don't know that enough people have seen that to appreciate how good that is, because it was kind of casually thrown out there, and it might be the best special of that year.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Easily. And then right after that came out, he had the And Friends one, because that wasn't the advice one, was it? Heartbreaks and Hair Plugs?
No, that's the one where he's talking about how like he had just gotten hair transplants.
Okay.
And he's also talking about what it's like being a gay guy playing Call of Duty with straight guys.
First off, love that joke. I could live here.
But again, you got a gay guy talking about the difference between gay and straight people, and no one cares. Everyone's like, well, yeah, that's a pretty astute observation.
Right. And then just the whole, the caveat, because you might have been older. Were you ever a video game guy?
Yeah, but it was like original Halo.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
so
back then.
So you still probably got on the fringe of this, but like I grew up and one of my first games was Modern Warfare 2, which is notably possibly the most offensive game lobby you'll ever be in, and people know that. And like Mateo's joke was you'd get shot by someone, and when they kill you, you can hear their voice for another second, and he goes, "Faggot!" And then Mateo's joke was like, and the naivety of me to go, "How'd he know?" Like, "Oh no, sweet boy, that's just video games."
Yeah, that had nothing. If anything, they like you should be not offended because he had no idea you were.
He's white, you're white. He's still going to call you the N-word.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that great clip of the guys playing? There's like 4 or 5 of them playing a game, and they're like, if I ever had like a problem or something, would you be there for me? Like if I needed to talk to you, and they're like, absolutely not. No. And one of the guys is like, he's like, I'd be laughing at your funeral, knowing that if I just talked to you, I could have prevented this or something like that. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I mean, toughen up a little bit, right?
Right.
The world needs to be a little tougher.
Oh, dude, I thank Christ that my little pudgy pussy ass got sent into football, because I was such a little dweeb. Like, I think about him nonstop. He's come to comedy shows of mine. I love him very much. My freshman year football coach, he told me something earnestly, and I think about it at least twice a week. He said, "Paxton," and then he put his hand on my hand and he goes, "You need to reach up into your mangina and pull your balls out and give them a tug." And like at a second, I laugh and I go, "Oh, he's right.
Yeah.
Darn it, I am a pussy."
I mean, everybody needs to be just a little. It's and no one should be actually oppressed.
Right.
Most of us are never oppressed, and that's the thing.
That's what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
You meet someone that had a way worse life, and usually they're way more cheerful than you are. And you're like, fuck. Like if I could have just been happy.
Well, and it's like for as much as I dislike things about America, there's things that I think just are horrible and need to change, need to improve. One thing that is great here, it's like it's not easy, but and people hate hearing like pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's such an old, but truthfully, if you wanted to, I'm not saying it's fair.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go get 3 or 4 jobs and try to make something of yourself, you can do it.
Right.
There is opportunity. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's fair that you should have to go work 3 or 4 jobs to get ahead anywhere, but
Right.
you're capable.
You might have to.
You're capable of it is all I'm saying,
Yeah.
And especially nowadays, like that's the side of the internet that I think people don't like to acknowledge is you will see someone with severe limitations making more of themselves than we will.
Right.
And so it's like, what is your excuse? You know?
Yeah. You're
What's
like,
your excuse?
okay, everyone's been a victim at one point in their life. How are you always the victim?
And they're also still cheery, you know? It'll be some guy who lost his legs in a war and he's running marathons now, and he's like, yeah, I'm just happy that at the end of the marathon I've got nubs to hurt, you know, and be sore. He's like, I'm just happy to be here. And I'm sitting here complaining, you know.
Yeah, you would have
I'm
thought
slow.
Right. I would have thought every person that looked like Lieutenant Dan would have acted like Lieutenant Dan. I've met one asshole that looked like that.
That's what I'm saying.
It looked like that sounds shitty,
I know
but
what
one
you mean.
person that was an amputee person.
Who behaved that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one asshole. And that's it. Like,
and I think a lot of people too. I think that's why I don't like man, it's tough to phrase it in a way where you don't, you know, I don't want to I genuinely don't want to offend you ever. You know, I'm not out to offend you. So that's not any goal. Like if anybody listens to this and is worried about that, like, oh boy, here he goes. But, you know, people are capable of being very resilient, and people are capable of achieving more. And I don't know that they believe themselves that they're capable of doing it. You know, so I think a lot of times when you are being very positive too much, you're not helping them find that.
right.
You know, like, it's like, I know not everybody wants to hear like a David Goggins type person, but those people have a great place where it's like, you know, he was talking to somebody that they're like, you know, I don't have money for a gym membership or anything. He's like, you got a floor? You got a fucking floor?
Yeah.
You do some squats and some push-ups? Do you live in the world? Can you go outside and walk?
Right.
And it's like, you know, you need to hear that. You know, it's like, hey, if you want to be obese, if you're comfortable in your skin, I'm never going to say a bad word to you. You
Right.
know? And like, no one should pick on you for that either.
Yeah.
Right. But, you know, I do think little things like if you're, I'm trying to think of something that's kind of like airplanes.
Okay.
That's an unfortunate situation if you're obese,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel for you.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You know, this is the way it works.
Yeah, at one point in my life, I was bulimic. I figured it out. I'm also not bulimic anymore, but, you know, I was uncomfortable in a lot of places. And
Well, that's a great example of the flip side. It's like, we both had Liz Mooney on our shows, and it's like her struggle with weight is she would like to not lose weight all the time.
And that was so interesting to
Yeah.
me. Like, she had someone that was, and I don't mean for this to sound shitty at all, because I had a roommate who was a skinny dude, and his big thing was always trying to put on weight. And up until I lived with a guy that was constantly trying to put on weight, I would have never noticed that that's a struggle, because I was a guy with tits my whole life, and it was impossible not to look at a loaf of bread without gaining 5 pounds.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, his stuff comes with its own health risk.
Yeah.
You know, like if women are severely underweight for a while, it's like they can stop having periods. They can go into premenopause. I mean, you know, you can have severe physical impacts from that to your health.
Right.
But no one's going to care about that guy or Liz struggling to put on weight. They're going to be like, oh, woe is me. Just eat some more.
Oh, you're a
It's like,
skinny queen.
yeah,
Suck it
yeah.
up, bitch.
And so
like,
it's
no.
like, you know, it's the same thing. It's like, look, no one should be picking on you for your thing.
Right.
But if you're like, you know, the world owes me something and the world needs to bend to my way, it's like, hey, there's a lot of us on this planet.
Right.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
It's, you know, like, I think, too, being happy with, like, some things are just always unfair.
Yeah. There's always going to be a couple things that you're not going to like.
Like, it never works out 100% for any of us.
Yep.
You know? But then it's also hard, too. It's like when you're almost 40 and you're just like a white guy, it's like, if you say any of those things, I think it really just falls on deaf ears.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I can ever talk about those things anymore where people are like, you made a good point, you know, because they're just going to, well, you don't know my experience.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you also don't know anyone else's experience, really. Everybody's got an experience.
Right. And you know, a lot of people have come up to me after I lost, mostly this was back in college when I was first starting to lose the weight, and they would like compliment me, and I didn't know how to take it, and it took me a long time to realize that I didn't know how to take it because I didn't want it. I never set off to lose, well, no, that's not true. I set off to lose weight to get down to a number.
Yeah.
But I did that incorrectly because I should have been setting off to be happy.
Right.
I've as soon as I got out of college and started taking therapy, it took me forever to realize that if I was 275 pounds and happy, I would be 315 right now.
Yeah. Do you still listen to Kill Tony at all?
Never did.
Never did. Okay.
I only ever watched it when our friends get on.
You ever heard of JP Hinsdale?
I love JP.
So he's been getting stuff on Kill Tony.
Yeah.
I just listened to an episode that he was on, and I think he moved down to Austin, right?
Yeah. Used to be a Denton guy. Here's the fun thing about JP, the little behind the window, and this is why I love JP. Some people might not like him for this reason, but if you went to the Twilight Lounge in Fort Worth on Wednesday nights when Mana was still running Claws Out, JP was there just about every other Wednesday, and you'd come there, and if you said hello to JP, you got talked at for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But it's also the smartest, most intellectual, in-depth, thoughtful speech you've ever been talked at with.
I really liked him when he was here. I would only ever see him at open mics. I know that he's got a pretty unique personality.
Yeah.
But the times I would see him, some of his little open mic rants, there was just this fascinating stuff inside there. And you're thinking like, there's funny right there. He's just molding it still, but there's something really funny there. I really liked him. And I got to talk to him a couple times after, like I think I saw him after like a Mad Hatter open mic or maybe the Hyenas Dallas one. And you're talking to him and you're like, this is a nice guy. I like this guy. Anyway, but now I'm all worried about him. I don't even see him because he was on, they weighed him on Kill Tony.
Oh, no.
I mean, he was in on it. He was part of it.
Right.
But I think he was like, oh man, I can't remember the number, but it was like over 350.
Poor guy.
And he's talking about like can't feel his foot and all this. And it's like,
what?
Yeah, it's like it's all funny on stage, but it's like, hey, dude,
that's a cry for help.
Yeah, it's like, man, you gotta, like you said, you can tell he's unhappy at this weight, and he's hiding behind the jokes about it.
Yeah,
right?
and to a certain extent, and this might be my thought process because I'm a comic, and people have said this at me before as a joke, but they're like, a lot of people will say, oh, just gain weight, you got a new 5. And then like at a certain point you look at JP and you're like, he's always been big, but he got noticeably bigger.
Yeah. Is
this like a thing? Is this like when people used to wear shittier shirts on stage, like with holes in it on purpose?
I think he's probably got a real problem with food and the way he talked. I'm going off what he was saying. I don't know him well. But because when I heard he moved down to Austin, again, I don't really know him, but I sent him a message. I was like, dude, I think that's good. Because I always felt like maybe he didn't get a
good rep here.
Yeah, and you're learning, right? It's all cliquey, and there's people. It's like if you're in with them, they'll help you, and if you're not, maybe not, right? And he's just kind of an outsider to begin with. So I always felt like if he'd been given a few more opportunities, that there's probably some really good stuff in there.
Oh yeah.
So when he went to Austin, I was like, hey man, good luck down there. Like I'm hoping you get like kind of a fair shake at things down there because I think you'll do well.
Yeah, he's a very different. In the same way that I love Nicky, it's so different. Everything that's coming out of his mouth, story-wise, is at least a kernel of a truth.
Yeah.
He's not just making shit up. And that's what I like. I've always liked, that's why I have Laugh It Off now through DCC, is I like the storytelling stuff because I don't care to listen to what story you've created. This isn't Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I'm trying to recover.
Yeah.
I'm a hothead. I'm trying to work through that. There are things that I need something to relate to. I don't want to hear your pun. I can't stand a pun.
Yeah. That being said, is it Steve Lovelace that does the pun show?
Okay, I'll take that back. I do love Steve.
I have not gone to his show, but I'm still very excited about going to one because I also I cringe at puns, but I think it's just becoming a dad that the puns now are more like, I gotta hear him.
Hear him.
And even on Kill Tony, he's kind of a pun guy. And I will say with Kill Tony, that's another one. It's really polarizing. And when it was with Jeremiah Watkins in L.A. when he was on there, I listened to it nonstop.
I loved it. Do you still watch Stand Up on the Spot?
No, I don't get to watch as much as I want to, but that's just out of time.
Right.
But he's one of my favorites.
He's so funny.
But I loved the balance that him and Tony had. And when Tony went to Austin, he's got a lot of support from people down there. And I think he's felt like he's
a rock star.
He is, and he is. I'm not trying to say he's not. He is.
Right.
And because of that, he definitely goes more aggressive on things, and people dislike him for that. But at the end of the day, it's a quick-witted guy. He's quick. He's funny. It's you may not like him, but to say he's a horrible comic or a horrible whatever, it's he's
a horrible person. He's very fast though.
And
I don't know that he's a horrible person. He's probably the greatest guy.
But it's like everybody, right? It's he's probably a phenomenal person to some people, and he's probably a horrible person to others.
Exactly.
Just like everybody.
I was just about to say.
There are a lot of people who probably think I'm a terrible person because I don't like them.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is.
And I just don't have any energy to give to you. I'm sorry, but I'm saving it for the people I love.
And that's everybody, right?
Right.
I worked with Lawrence. Lawrence have people who will probably never ever want to speak to him again.
Yep.
And then they have other people who are like, he's great. He's awesome.
And in the same way, you had Kenny Lee on, and Kenny Lee is the sweetest man I've ever met in my entire life. I love him dearly. Mm-hmm. Someone out there is such a lunatic that they don't like Kenny, and I fucking hate that guy.
Yeah.
Whoever doesn't like Kenny is a terrible person.
I liked him before he was on the podcast. Can't stand him now. Can't stand him now.
Then you and I are at...
No, I like a lot of things about Kenny Lee. I really... I mean, his comedy's great. Funny guy. So that's like... goes without saying, but his fashion. I'm in love with his fashion.
He dressed up like my pawpaw going fishing
I
on
think
this
I have
podcast.
I have a crush on his fashion, I guess.
I know.
What I'm trying to say.
It's so funny. And you're like, you meet him and he's just like the most, I'm not going to say typical, but he's not even atypical. He's an architect.
Yeah.
He wears stuff like that. He's a clean comic, which I respect in its own right, because I haven't been clean since I was 5. My parents taught me how to curse correctly because they didn't want me to sound stupid when I cursed.
Yeah.
It was like that level. In fact, there was one time I got caught in high school cursing in class, and it was with a teacher I was closer with. I liked her, she liked me, and I wasn't cursing at her or at anyone. I just cursed, and she goes, "Paxton, what would your mom say if I called her and said you just said shit?"
Yeah,
and I, without skipping a beat, I just said she'd put it on speakerphone and have you call me an idiot.
What was the context? Did he use it right?
Exactly. She said, or she would have put it on speakerphone and called me a fucking idiot for the whole class to hear because it would have embarrassed me not to do shit like that anymore. But like, I'm trashy. Like I know my favorite restaurant's QT. Like I get it.
Well, clean comedy. Like last night was a great kind of juxtaposition because I believe Des followed Linda Stogner.
Really?
Yeah.
So, I do know that Linda doesn't like to go after dirty, so that does make sense if Des went not even dirty, but like not clean.
Yeah, and she's clean, and you're watching it and you're like, God, it's just so funny. And she's one of those two. I've seen her act so many times. My wife and I have watched her for like a decade, and she's great. And now I'm having this whole new resurgence of loving her comedy because I keep going to shows where people have never seen her before, and they're getting that first taste of Linda Stogner, and they're getting their minds blown.
Right.
And it's awesome. And she's just totally clean, and I'm just kind of watching like, wow, they're loving the clean version right here. And then Des comes on, and he's, like you said, he's not a shock comic, but he's using swear words. We're talking about race. He's talking about, having sex with older women and stuff. It's like hilarious, and it's dirty.
Right.
And
he's a regular dude.
And they're dying just as hard. And it's like, it's just awesome. Clean is definitely harder.
Yeah.
But it's awesome to see, I don't know, just that quick change where, because nobody wants the same show, right?
Yeah.
But.
And you were talking about it on Liz's episode as well, and I full-heartedly agree with you. And it's hard-pressed to find other people that agree. But I think 80% of themed shows need to go.
Oh, you were listening to that part?
I love that part, and I agree.
I was kind of worried when I was talking to her she was going to be like, this asshole. But
I think that there is definitely an outlet for each one of those ones that we brought up individually. Brown Out with Shree, Black Sugar with Peyton, Girls Night Out with Liz. But I think it's the shit like, okay, I'm not going to say the club, but one time my friend Jacob Marshall had gotten me on a show, and Jacob, to get this show going, he was the headliner or even the feature, I can't necessarily remember, but the club made him have a theme. And he goes, can we just have funny comics? Like, can that be the theme? And he goes, no, we needed to have a theme.
Yeah.
And then, so Jacob, nothing on him for making it this, but he just made it from the Burbs.
Oh, okay.
So he had to make it a theme.
Yeah.
And nothing about the show changed at all. We all just did our normal material. I didn't bring up the word suburb once, and no one else did either. It was why are we putting themes on things that don't need themes?
Yeah, because, from their side, they're probably just trying to move tickets, right? So they're thinking this will look like a different poster.
Right. And from that perspective to that club, I'd love to say, and you think people are going to go, oh, the suburbs.
Right.
Let's go to this
Yeah.
bagel shop. Never mind.
I think what bothers me with the ladies ones, any of the all female shows, is that I get worried it has the opposite effect of like, I get worried people are going to go, they're not good enough to be on the other shows, so we put them on this show.
I've had that thought process too.
When we know that the women around here, that's not true. Obviously,
no, it's just few and far between. Like,
well, there's always 4 or 5 to 1 men wanting to try comedy than women, and it's just unfortunate, Now, That being said, I've also been to so many shows where there's not a girl or there's the token girl.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay, that can change. We can try to balance it. But sometimes it's not going to balance, you know? And so it's like, I think when you have an all-female show, because it was just happenstance, like these are the people that are available. I wanted them on my show. They're hilarious. I don't see any problem with that. But there's something to me I get worried about. And it's the same way like when you have a like the brownout, it's like you do get worried. It's like, well, were these people not good enough to be on the regular shows? And it's like, no, that's not the case.
That's not the case. This is just they need an avenue for non-white people. And, you know, good for them because that's even, it's 4 or 5 to 1 guys to girls. It's probably 3 or 4 to 1 white people to non.
Yeah. And like I said, I talked to Liz about it, I was trying to write an article kind of expressing that concern, but I could never find a way to get it to where it didn't sound like you were just saying, you know, like we should just get rid of these shows. It was more about like my understanding of like, I wonder why these need to happen because they are happening. The tickets sell. People seem to like it, but it shouldn't need to happen. Right. It should just all blend.
I think it's...
And you know, so you're just worried that like the outsiders are going to go, oh, no, these were the comics who couldn't make it. And it's like, no. They just, you know, like I said, the guy Stefan who hosts...
Stefan Newman.
Queer Factor is a show, right? He was the one who explained it the best, where it was like, no, we don't really pitch it that way. You know, obviously, it's like there's just a lot of jokes that are going to hit with this community better.
Right.
And so that community knows, like, this show's probably going to lean more into these topics, and it's going to hit harder. And so that's a show they know if they come to, there's going to be, like, more inside baseball that's hilarious to them.
Right.
You know, and
I've
and I was
also
like,
just
I
always
respect that. Okay.
I've always thought too. I completely agree with that, especially in early comedy. But by 5 years in, shouldn't your jokes just hit anyways? Like, isn't that pandering at the end of the day?
I guess. Yeah.
I don't want my jokes to be for dudes. I want my jokes to be for people.
Yeah, that's kind of what I get concerned about. It's like it's like people who go to the same open mic.
Yeah.
Kind of start leaning one direction real hard, whatever that is. Same thing. It's like, no, just get your broad horizons. That way, if you're in that environment, you can hang. But again, I get it. You know, it's like if you're a LGBTQ, keep going, whatever comic, and you've got this great material that's going to hit really hard with that community, but probably not anyone else. And this is a show where you can do it. And then at other shows, like, I probably won't use that one here because it's not going to hit. Sure, I get it. Like, if that's just funsies for you, like, oh, cool, this night I'll get to really go to this topic.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm sure, like, like if you're a gun nut and you're performing at the NRA, you're going to get to go crazy, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun, you know? So I kind of view it that same way, you know? But it was just hard to write anything about that where it
without
didn't sound
sounding like an asshole.
I'm just a 40-year-old guy who doesn't get it.
Why does everyone else need an opportunity? Like, no, that's not what I'm saying.
I want all my comics to be Bill Burr.
Yeah. You need to be angry, drunk, whites, capital H, whites. No.
Yeah, it was tough. You know, there's no tone in writing and everything. So I was like, I'm just going to skip this one.
So, like, for example, I've been hearing a lot of gay comics recently, whether it's in the scene or of public eye, that are just now starting to talk about a new dating app that gay people have. I think it's just exclusive to gay men, but it's called Sniffies or something like that.
Oh,
and
Sniffies.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So, right. Not what I would have been doing.
Yeah.
Like,
but right here in the comedy set, I'm already like, go on.
Yeah.
Like, educate me here. What are we talking about?
First, that's the exact point I want to get to. But like, in that queer factor eye, if you use a punchline and Sniffies is the punchline, it's going to kill there because gay people know that because they've been talking about it. If you use it in a straight room, it might not unless those people have gay friends. But I would love for you to use Sniffies as that punchline and then funnily describe Sniffies to me. Like, isn't that what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to make a reference and then define that reference like everyone in the room hadn't heard of that before.
There's this comic, I can't think of his name right now. He's from like I thought it was Chris Porter, but that's not him. This guy just randomly came up. Great. Chris Fleming. Have you heard of him?
Maybe.
I think he's from San Francisco area maybe. But like I'll just show you, like I won't play it, but I'll show you like how he dresses and everything. So he's like ultra kind of like hipster vibe on stage.
Right.
And he's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
But for the first time in a long time, I was like having to pause and like Wikipedia terms and phrases. He was using terms for lesbians that I'd never heard before.
Yeah, you're like, whoa,
things
that
like
one's new.
But it's like once I found the term and I went back, I was like, God, that's a funny joke.
Right. That's the funniest joke I've ever heard if I knew it.
And so, I think that's kind of like that. He's drifting into that territory where it's like, I almost can't relate to your comedy.
Yeah.
It's just close enough. But then you got guys like Mateo, he's talking about his full gay experience so much, but he's just crafted it in a way where straight guys from Texas can laugh just as hard.
Yeah,
I've never... He guided us really well through this joke to where we didn't miss a beat.
Right.
So I'm sure with shows like Queer Factor, that's the start, right? Like, here's how you can do your material that's honest to you.
Right.
But if you do want to continue doing that material and grow, you're going to have to figure out how to relate it to the other people that aren't in this group too if you want to get a bigger audience.
Yeah.
Now, if you're happy staying with that audience, that's probably going to be fine. But, why, if you're a comic, I assume you want to make as many people laugh as you can, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is I never want to be like, some of these people get stuck in corporate stuff because they just have a niche now.
Yeah.
I heard a guy, I can't remember his name. He's a comic. He's not a well-known comic, I don't think. Or maybe I'm an asshole.
Or from somewhere else?
No, from somewhere else.
Okay.
But he apparently had this joke that is so coinciding with this one antidepressant medicine that it's the antidepressants ad on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
And then I can't figure out if he wrote that joke for the ad or the ad found the joke.
Yeah.
And it fucking infuriates me because I can't figure it out. But
yeah.
I've never seen a comic pander to an extent where you've made a joke for an ad.
Yeah. That's pretty strange.
The
closest other thing would be how Shane Gillis is now sponsored by Bud Light.
Right. But he's not writing a joke for that. He's writing a skit, if anything.
Yeah.
And I would be surprised if he's writing any of it either, and it's not the Bud Light team, and he has like a 2 cents in on it.
Yeah. Yeah, he crafts it how he needs to.
Right. I would never be sitting here I would not write a joke about sheath underwear. I have a podcast, so please sponsor me there. But I'm not going to write you a joke for my set about sheath underwear.
Yeah.
I'd rather not. If it comes up in like a crowd work situation, I've got a couple things about underwear, because who doesn't want to fuck their underwear? But
yeah. You know what did happen like that, sort of, was on one of Burr's very old podcast episodes. He was doing a read for an ad for Sherry's Berries. You ever heard that?
I feel like I have.
So Sherry's Berries is like the edible arrangement type stuff that you send, like one of the things you buy for work. And he's reading the ad, and he just can't help. Like, he didn't know he was going to be reading that ad. So he's sitting there with like his Boston accent, and he's like, Sherry's Berries. And he just starts laughing, and he's like, what the fuck is Sherry's Berries? Are you guys kidding me? Is this like a real read? And he like can't get through it. He's just talking shit about it. And it ends up being just this viral thing.
Right.
And it's like Sherry's Berries probably never got better advertisement than that.
Oh, yeah.
But of course they pull their sponsorship. They're like, well, we won't do it on there anymore. And it's like, man, y'all should have leaned into that.
You should have just
That's
let
such a
him
natural,
go.
like, the amount of people who probably learned about Sherry's Berries just from that guy ripping on your whole brand. I mean, because some people are going to go, oh, yeah, that's dumb. Some people are going to go, it's so stupid. But I mean, I don't know. I think maybe the next potluck I bring one of those.
Right. And to the same extent, I don't think I'd ever heard Sherry's Berries. And however long ago he did that ad read, we're talking about it in 2025 now.
That's what I'm saying, man.
I'm curious what Sherry's Berries is now. I'm going to go look at what the arrangement.
Look up Sherry's Berries and Bill Burr. And
exactly.
You'll have a good time. Yeah. Because, it's typical Bill Burr. I think he went on for like 5 or 6 minutes about this.
Yeah.
And he's probably only originally supposed to read like a 40-second ad. And it's like, so you got extra time, extra exposure,
I love when comics start actually making their persona in the ads too. Yeah. Just one time Bill Burr went free, and now that's his whole thing.
What about a ZipRecruiter? The way Bill Burr reads it, Zip.
Oh,
Recruiter.
Zip.
And he changes it every single time, and it's like, he's a marketing genius, and you guys aren't appreciating this.
Yeah. There's another. Have you ever heard of Robert Kelly, the comic from? Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the same way, he used to make ads for a company called Pillow Cube.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
But they weren't even ads. He was just like pushing them out because he enjoyed the product so much, and then.
Like he wasn't getting paid, he just liked it.
Wasn't getting paid, just giving him a shout out. And then they ripped the clip that he made and put it as their ad. And it's awesome. Of him and his son. They're not getting paid at all, and his son's 10 years old. And you're like, yo!
Yeah.
I was just shouting you out, and now you're stealing money from me and my 10-year-old?
You'd hope they'd be cool and like just throw him some money. But
right.
Who
or
knows?
Bring it up.
Yeah,
he found out
knows,
6 months afterwards. Fact, like, you've been using that clip I posted on Instagram?
That's brutal. Yeah. I mean, that's comedy, though, man. These guys, like, it's crazy that you can be so dumb and so observant and smart at the same time. The dumbest smart people,
Right. I would I would beg anyone that calls me smart, because surprisingly, it happens. I would beg them to walk around with me in everyday life.
Yeah.
And you're like, yo, you're just a special kind of high-functioning stupid.
We just need to watch you at the grocery store. Just
Oh my
something very normal.
And I used to be a smart kid. Like, I didn't have to try with math sometimes.
Yeah.
Like some of the special stuff like geometry and calculus. But I got algebra. I had nailed that. And then I got my 6th concussion somewhere along the line. And I, like, every once in a while I have to remind myself to breathe. Like, there's something along that line. You're like, no, I'm not smart. I've just figured some shit out. Like,
I'm just picturing you sitting by yourself watching TV going.
Or even worse than that, oh, God, my girlfriend caught this the last time she was in town. She just watched me choke on my spit from doing nothing. And we're sitting there watching... Oh, damn it.
I remember this from when Lawrence and I came on your show now. That's like, you made us feel young because you started talking about the old man stuff that you do already.
Oh, dude, at New Year's, I sneezed and threw out my back. I'm Benjamin Button accidentally. Like,
yeah.
I not dislocated. I have dislocated my shoulder 3 times, which is its own thing. I fractured a couple discs in my spine in high school, so now I know when it's about to rain.
Yeah, get some good arthritis going on already.
My hands hurt constantly. Like, if I live past 51 1/4, it's a feat.
You're only a couple years away then, probably, from like you're gonna get like a rocking start before you sit up out of a chair.
I do that.
Here we go.
I don't to this day. I don't know in my entire life if I've ever sat down. I fall into where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
There's a reason, like, my couch has a huge broken part, and I still sit there because I like it, but I broke it accidentally.
It's broken the way I like it.
Yeah. No, it's worked in. Stop it.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to get you out of here. But
Yeah, of course, man. This was amazing.
Where are you performing right now when you're doing stand-up mostly?
I'm kind of all over DFW right now. Hopefully, I'd like to venture out into, maybe even doing like a college gig at my alma mater. That'd be cool. But
what are some of the clubs you get to hit consistently?
Consistently, I like hitting DCC. I'm hitting Big Laugh because that's close to home, and I do, like, I want that to be the next hub, because I'm not going to say the name of the club, but there's a club a block up and 2 blocks over that I cannot stand. And it might just be the manager's fault, or the GM, whatever his name is. So I'm hitting Big Laugh. I need to start going back to Addison Improv for the bits and giggles. That part was so good, especially if someone named Pete Young was there. I love you, Pete, you smart son of a bitch. I'm doing DCC a lot now. Speaking of which, February 21st, I've got something called Laugh It Off. It's a storytelling, dark, uncensored. I just want to make things that we've all gone through relatable. So come check that out. It's got an awesome lineup with Jacob Marshall, Cody Swindell, Vinny Corrales, and Ihoma. So it's got a very fun conglomerate of different people.
Is that a monthly show? Bi-monthly?
Bi-monthly show. Side room, 50-minute time slot.
Nice.
Yeah, it's nice. When I submitted to do a show, I didn't think I'd get it just based off of merit, because I didn't think someone that was at the 2-year mark should be producing a show. But they let me, and it was just because I didn't go for a 90-minute time slot, because I know who the fuck I'm dealing with. But
I think producing a show in a small room at your level of comedy is good. I think you're going to learn a lot. And I think those shows are really important for the community to keep growing. Like, you got to have these tiers of comedy so that you guys can keep working on it. It can't just be open mics and then full on like feature spot. Right. It's got to be all the stuff
in a very similar way that we were talking about with waiting tables. I feel like everyone should serve table or have to wait tables. And if you're a comic, everyone should have to put on a show, because now I understand the severity of needing people to bark for a show. I printed out 100 flyers, spent more money. I didn't make any money off of that first show, which is fine. They were using me as a test, and it worked. I completely understand. I lost all the money on this show, and I was just going out and barking. And I had never been in a situation where people were saying, nah, basically saying, fuck you to my face. And I just had to like, okay, well, we do it a lot if you ever want to come back. And after a certain point, like, there were a couple people that like did the basic fuck you. And then once I said, completely understand, we do it every once in a while, they turn around and go, well, what's time that show tonight? I go, oh, you're just so used to this. You're just so used to getting accosted when you're walking around in downtown Deep Ellum, for example. They're like, you don't think that any... I had to come up with different marketing strategies. It was a $15 ticket for a 50-minute show, so I walk up to people saying, if you buy a ticket and you come to the show and you stick around to the end of the show, if you give me this flyer, I'll send you back $3 per ticket that you bought. That got 5 people.
Yeah.
Not many, but that got 5 people. Yeah. I did have to spend $15 extra, but you know.
Yeah, but it's something too. I mean, and plus you're gaining a whole new appreciation for
the people that do it.
Yeah, and it's like this feature comic who's trying to jump to a headliner who's now able to sell 300 tickets on a Saturday. You know, it's like now you go like, gosh, man, I know how hard that is to move 300 tickets, and they're doing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like you really respect just how difficult comedy is when you work through those tiers.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying it as someone who just goes and watches those tiers of shows. Obviously, I haven't done that. But, you know, you see it, and it's like I get to – what I like about it, which I try to stress to people who are just comedy fans.
Right.
Open mics are brutal. I understand that that's not for everyone.
Yeah.
I like going to watch those. I like watching people progress. But those in-between shows, like you said, a theme show, most of those people on those shows have figured out a way to be funny for 5, 7, 10 minutes, and it's going to be a solid show. Mm-hmm. The only thing that has ever limited those shows, in my experience, is bringing a crowd.
Yeah.
I've been to so many good themed shows like that were smaller, you know, that it's a funny show. There just happens to be 7 people here tonight.
Yeah.
And it's just not enough environment to keep it going. And then the ones you go to where there's even just 30 people, it's like all of a sudden, there it is. There's the magic that we were missing. And that's what I tell them. It's like, go to those shows. They're usually cheaper. They're usually at times where you can actually get to them more easily, you know, and it's not like a Friday, Saturday night commitment. It's like you can drop in on a Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a little more chill. It's like I like going to those. And DCC's been doing a great job, you know, and their crowds are picking up, it seems.
And, you know,
I that's what I encourage people to. It's like it's a cheaper show. You get a different atmosphere than what your normal comedy show is, and then you're going to see a lot of new faces that you never get to. It's usually a good time.
It was really fun after someone said something to me that challenged me. In that, shout out Teddy C. He was the one that told me. I'm glad I remembered. But he just said, "Yeah, man, DCC doesn't." And I'm not saying this with any sort of negative being at DCC at all. Mm-hmm. DCC is using you against the main show.
Right.
And that's what's fun, because I'm an asshole. I want to win. If I can get people I don't want to steal anyone from the main room, because that's not how that works. People are going to hate me. But if I got 25 off my first show at DCC against almost packed main room, and that was a win for me. Mm-hmm. That was a huge win, because I was like, I'm not telling anyone that's on this show that they need to help me spread it out or anything like that. That's on the producer.
Yeah.
Jacob Marshall taught me that, and he was the one that brought me under his wing when he was doing Fort Brewery. And he's like, no, it's the producer's job and the host's job to do this. If they're not the same person, like, it's on them to get this shit out there.
Yeah.
There are comics that aren't going to be able to do that, and that's fine, because they're still good comics, but I'm not that great at comedy.
Well, and most of these comics that are on these shows, they haven't built up an audience. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to grow their audience.
And that takes 15 years at best.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. But luckily, I mean, I think we're living in a great time for DFW comedy, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's getting easier, but the opportunities are at least there.
I think that not enough people are admitting that this is the best hybrid scene.
Well, see, that's why we're podcasting about it. That's why you got your show, bring these comics on. Honestly, your show has been a resource for me. It's like when I have guests on and I see that they've been on your show, I'm like, well, I got to listen to that episode. That's a little bit of research. And then I'll go through your list to just see who do I not know about.
Right.
Because you know how it is. There's all these corners of comedy here locally. Right when I think I know who's kind of running around, you're like, well, there's 20 people I've never heard of.
Yep.
You know? And then every year there's a new group coming in. So I really enjoy having, you know, other guys like yourself here podcasting, and then even like... who's the other guy? Before they stood up, Tom
Terapian?
I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine about the last name.
Yeah.
But the show's called Before They Stand Up. But just people who care enough to go, you know, let's just meet these other comics, you know, and do what we can. Because even yours, it's like, I know you're a comic and you have something to gain from it.
Yeah.
But it's not that typical, like, we're here to advance my comedy career. Thank you for being a guest. Right? Which... so many people start, they're like, how many rapid-fire jokes can we get in here to show people that I'm funny and you should book me?
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that your show doesn't go that way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that is one thing, is I know I'm a blowhard, but I also know that, like, as much as I can make people laugh, it's so much worse when I force it. So I got to get that's my favorite part about the podcast is, in a shitty almost way, I'm the gatekeeper, but I'm only gatekeeping and keeping out people I don't want on. Like, we have returning guests when there are plenty of people I haven't gotten to in the scene that I plan to get to. Mm-hmm. But I've also got to become a better host at the same time. So give me some comfortability.
Yeah.
I need a little bit of rapport, and sometimes I've gone in with no rapport and it's worked out, and other times I feel like I brought this up on the Ihoma episode or the Taylor P episode. Mm-hmm. There are times where I'm sitting in that chair like Chris Farley talking to Paul McCartney. Like, do you remember the Beatles?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's crazy to say, but it's like talking to people is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, and how many episodes do you have out now?
Sri Raj will be episode 60, his second time
60.
coming on.
So it's like 60 feels like a lot.
Yeah.
Right? But then you realize, we're using Joe Rogan because he's no argument, he's the most successful podcast, right? And he's up into the 2000s now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're like, oh, okay, all right. It's okay to feel a little out of touch here and there because it's like any other career. It's like it's going to take a little while to master everything. I feel the same way. It's like it doesn't matter how long I've been doing this. Sometimes you get a guest where you're like, how am I going to crack this open? How am I going to really get in here,
Yeah, and I don't want to be the guy you're like, let's talk about this and this and this beforehand. Mm-hmm. Like, I might give, like, hey, if it comes up and we need a lull, like, we can talk about this and we can talk about this. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I've got such severe ADHD that just let me go. Let me go, I'll say something, and then you'll have something.
Yeah. And, of course, shout out to Blake, who's not here. Blake, the producer.
I fucking love that guy.
Yeah.
But also, I hate that guy.
Of course.
Because he's my roommate, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny to me, too, that my best relationship is the guy I text the most, my roommate, and also we just call each other gay nonstop. Like, we have a new fun game where as we're passing each other's room, we'll just flip each other off. And that means I love you. And then dudes just know that. It's great.
Yeah. Well, what's going to be great is if one day y'all realize you're just gay and y'all end up together.
Wouldn't that be so much
what
fun?
What a love story, right?
What a meet cute. And
one day you give him the finger and he's just like, what if it's for real though? Get in
exactly.
here.
It would make so much sense if I ended up being a dude chubby chaser after being a chubby.
Come on, man. And he just loves
You're happy being fat? Come here, give me a fucking
You both
kiss.
just love each other for who you are, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
I love him for his audio skills. He loved me for whatever reason.
Let your girlfriend know now it's a possibility.
Oh, she knows it's a throuple.
All right, yeah, well, we got it all covered. Let me ask you this, though. Who, other than you, should people be watching right now? I want to try to start asking this question more. Who do you like as a comic right now, locally, that people should be checking out?
There are a few people. Nicky, I've already said his name, but he's starting to do a lot more in this scene, so he doesn't necessarily need it, and I'm not trying to say that shitty, but there's a brand new 18-year-old kid that I'm fascinated with because he's 18. He's still in high school, too. Mm-hmm. Like his college or his high school football coaches just came to his show that we were on, George Brown.
George Brown, okay.
Out of Fort Worth. He's really doing a lot with Big Laugh, and he fascinates me because twice I've seen him bring at least 10 people.
Oh, wow.
When I first started, I had to beg for 5.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever gotten 10 people out was a time that I got disqualified on an unnamed club's comedy competition. And then ever since then, I've never asked anyone to come out because I got 90 seconds before my disqualification and then just wanted to die.
There you go, man. So Nicky P, George, what was it again?
George Brown, Nikki Butler, Taylor P is still one of my favorites. Really anyone from the Broccoli Bunch, Taylor P, Peyton, Kane, Kenny. Jacob Marshall needs some love because I love his comedy, but even more so than that, he's an incredible producer. The outside cat himself, Cody Swindell.
We will get you booked eventually, Cody.
Eventually.
We'll do some more cancellations first. But,
well, that's just going to make it more fun.
Yeah, that's how it is. I told him, I was like, I'll get you booked again, and then I'm going to cancel on you, okay? Like, yeah, sure. Anyway, and of course, Paxton. Go check out Paxton. Check out Dingbat. And thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, man. This was great.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.